All set.
There we go. I see the little live on YouTube. Good evening. We'll get our meeting started this evening. Please join in on the salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God.
Liberty, justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2022 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2021, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams.
Here.
Ms. Cripe. Mr. DeLuca.
Here.
Mr. McGeehee.
Here.
Mayor Daffis.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire of the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Adams.
Yes.
Ms. Cripe. Mr. DeLuca.
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee.
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Welcome, friends and neighbors, to our July 19th, 2022 Township Committee meeting. As you can see, we are still operating in virtual mode. Thank you for those of you who have joined us this evening from your homes. Hopefully you are all staying very cool and comfortable in light of the heat wave we're experiencing this week. We have a relatively short agenda tonight. We will start with a presentation by Essex County regarding several improvements along Valley Street to our intersections, improvements along Maplewood and into South Orange. These are improvements we've been talking about for many, many years, and they're going to improve, enhance the safety of those intersections. And the presentation will show us exactly what that's going to look like. We'll get a little bit of a timeline about the project and so on. Then we will move, there will be a public comment opportunity for that in particular, and then we will move into the first public comment of two for agenda items only. We have two ordinances on final. We have a presentation by our CFO, Mr. Koloje, regarding our 2022 municipal budget. And then we will go into reports from departments. I don't think we have any department reports again this evening. Administrative reports followed by reports from elected officials. I always go last. This evening we'll start with Deputy Mayor DeLuca, followed by Committee Member Cripe, Committee Member McGeehee, and then Committee Member Adams. We have two discussion items, two light discussion items, well, maybe one light discussion item and one not so light. We will consider canceling the second August Township Committee meeting. That's been something that we've been doing in recent times. I think we all could use a little bit of a break when most people are away on vacation, including many of us. And then we will talk about adopting a sump pump ordinance. And then we have about 6 or 7 items on the consent agenda. As we approve and adopt those, that will lead us into our second public comment period for any subject matter. Then we will adjourn. So let's get into our first item. Before we do that, I ask that you join in a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Roland M. Hayes, who is the dearly departed father of our former committee member, India Larrier. Our hearts and prayers go to India and the entire family. May his memory be a blessing. So please join in a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you. Okay, so let's move over to the presentation by the county. I think Assistant Administrator Barnett has moved all the relevant parties over. We're going to begin with a quick summary and introduction by our lead engineer and Director of Engineering Public Works, Mr. Paul Kittner. Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the team from Essex County and to tell us what we're about to look at.
Mayor and committee, good evening. Paul Kittner, Township Engineer and Director of Public Works. I'm very pleased to be here tonight to talk about the public information discussion and center regarding safety improvements to 11 intersections in our township and also in South Orange. I'm accompanied by Asif Mahmood from Essex County Engineering Department. He's a colleague of mine and has been a friend to the township. He's also accompanied by Joseph Fischinger of NB5. They're going to present this to the township tonight, but I just wanted to say a few words. This project has been in the making since 2017. I remember walking Valley Street with a number of the committee members and with Essex County and other people to identify, starting with almost a clean sheet of paper, identify what some of those concerns are on Valley Street. Some of the challenges that our pedestrians and student body, encounter every day. And I think the project was very successful in identifying that, coming up with reports on these improvements. Certainly, if you're a pedestrian and you're on the east side of the sidewalk, traveling in front of Baker Street, you realize it's a challenge because you have to cross Valley Street again, then cross Baker, cross Valley Street again, and then you could continue on your way. It's a bit of a challenge. You're a pedestrian at Milburn Ave trying to cross by Valley, and you're waiting for what seems like an infinite amount of time to cross. It's a challenge, and this plan addresses those items. If you're a student, on the southwest sidewalk against the country club where the hedgerow is, and you're crammed, into that 4 or 5 foot wide sidewalk. We came up with geometry to alleviate some of that, and that's going to be incorporated into this project. So in so many respects, and I just named a few, there's so many different areas that this project really addresses deficiencies, and it just improves pedestrian vehicular flow and safety. I want to turn this over to the county, but I wanted to share that with you. This really addresses the entire corridor of Valley Street along our township and also a good portion of South Orange. And, I'm happy to discuss this, and perhaps we can answer questions at the end of this. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Asif Mahmood and Joe Fischinger of NB5.
Good evening, everyone, including the mayor. We appreciate that, you gave us time to do a presentation, and also the committee members. And as Paul said, we did the road safety audit in 2017. Actually, the date is October 26th. That was Thursday. And we made 2 groups for the safety audit of this Valley Road. And one group followed the north side of the valley, and the other group assigned to follow the south side of the valley. Altogether, 11 locations in this project we have included. And Greenman, Peterson, GPI, they were the, coordinating this road safety audit as part of the NJTPA and NJDOT efforts for the safety of this corridor. And So we go back and forth with Paul and his office and also the administration. And we came up with these locations along with starting from Milburn Avenue and Valley Street, all the way up to the Parker, which is a part of the Maplewood, and then continue 2 more locations, which is in South Orange, and a few other locations that's not on Valley Street, but outside the Valley Street, but close to the South Orange area. So altogether 11 intersections are included, and we submitted a grant application to NJTPA for federal funding. It's gonna cost, the estimate would be $4.5 million to $5 million on all these locations. And right now, we are doing the design, and the Essex County went out and hired a very qualified engineering firm, NV5 of Parsippany, New Jersey, and Joe Fishinger is the lead engineer from NV5, who is gonna help us addressing the major issues that we have on Valley Street, such as pedestrians and also bicycles, the motor vehicles, and as we know that the park is connected next to the Valley Street, and a lot of residents, they go back and forth. And so we have introduced on one of the location lead pedestrian interval, LPI, and most probably as per our Joe Fishinger, NV5, he's going to elaborate more on this portion of the technicality. And so I would, at this time, I would like to ask Joe Fishinger to go ahead and, do the presentation of this project.
Asif, before Joe speaks, do we want to bring up the slideshow or presentation? Do we want to screen share that and bring that up?
Yeah, I'll pull that up now, Paul. Bear with me one second. Okay, if I'm doing this correctly, you should see my screen now. All right. So good evening, everyone. As I mentioned, I'm Joe Fishinger, the Director of Traffic Engineering with NV5. We're the lead designer on this project. There's, as Asif had mentioned, there are actually a number of projects that came out of this latest grant application. So what I want to talk to you today and go through with these 11 intersections, basically why we're doing the project, where the money's coming from, get into some of the specifics of what we're doing with the various intersections, and then go over briefly where we are in the process and where we go from here, what happens next. So I won't bore you reading this paragraph, but essentially the purpose of this project is to improve safety. We want to improve both pedestrian and vehicle safety, bring the intersections up to current standards, make sure they have the right signal equipment, count down pedestrian heads, push buttons in the right place, at the same time meet current ADA standards, basically bring the signals up to the 21st century. So where this comes from, as Asif had mentioned, is through a grant program for the NJTPA. It wouldn't be a federal project if there weren't acronyms involved. But the NJTPA, one of their functions serves as to act as a liaison between the federal government and federal funding and the local jurisdictions, in our case, Essex County. So the initial funding for the grant application was provided both by Essex County and some directly from NJTPA. Right now, as Asif mentioned, we're through the design phase. We're almost done with our design, getting final inputs on how the design's going to be done, and that's funded through the county. And then the construction, that $5 million number that you heard Asif mentioned, that's being funded through the federal government through the grant from the NJTPA. And the county still has some additional funding obligations during construction as support functions to make sure all the paperwork gets done. It's the federal government, there's always paperwork. So as Asif mentioned, there's 11 intersections in the study area, 8 on Valley Street, and then 3 in South Orange in that general vicinity. The way this segment was selected is the county actually got funding for 38 intersections scattered throughout the county, and the projects were broken up into 4 different sections just to make them a little more manageable. So we put everything on Valley Street together along with a few other intersections within South Orange. So overall, the types of improvements we're looking at, replacing all the traffic signal equipment, black poles with 12-inch LED heads with retro-reflective backplates, sidewalk improvements, in a few locations, curb bump outs where they're appropriate, high visibility crosswalks, upgrading some of the storm system. And I include intersection paving on this, and that's not really a safety benefit, but it's part of the project because we're going to cause problems at the intersection. We're going to rip up the pavement when we put in all the new equipment. So we want to fix it when we're done. So we're also will be paving each of the intersections. To give you a good general idea, Valley and Pearson, that signal was done, that was recently done earlier this year and finally finished. That came from a similar program. So that signal, what you're seeing in that signal as far as the poles, the type of signal heads, the push buttons, that's the type of thing that will be at the rest of the corridor. That signal was done earlier than the rest of these, but we're looking at the rest of the signals on Valley Street and upgrading them to similar standards. So to go through some of the specifics, and I will go through this very quickly. I know everyone's time is valuable. If there are specific questions, we can always go back. Starting at Milburn Avenue on our southern end of our corridor, we'll be replacing the signal equipment, repaving the intersection, sidewalk ramps, curbs, the black area, the darker black area you see on the aerial is our approximate paving limits. All of the signal equipment I know is in orange. That's just so it can be seen, but to give you an idea of the impacts to this, where in general on these projects, we're trying to stay within the existing roadway. We're looking not to take property from anyone. We're trying to bring things up to current standards within the footprint that we have to work with. And then as we start to move up Valley Street at the Tuscan and Baker, both of those signals will be replaced. Sidewalk on the west side of Valley will be replaced completely between them. We'll be upgrading all of the signal equipment, the striping and the coordinating the signals. One of the important things that's not really shown on these graphs because it's kind of hard to display is all of the signals along this corridor will be connected into the county's interconnected signal system. We actually put cell modems in the signal controllers now. They all report back to a central monitoring system at the county's offices so that they talk to each other and they can be monitored and adjusted as necessary straight from Essex County's offices. We don't even necessarily have to send a technician out. So we'll be redoing the intersections both at Tuscan and at Baker. One of the improvements you'll notice on the left side of the screen up at Baker is we are going to be pulling that curb line in and try and shrink the intersection. We want to make sure that we can still get the proper vehicles through, but at the same time, we're going to pull the curb line in to shorten that pedestrian crossing as best we can and make the necessary improvements to the sidewalk, curb ramps, and the signal, keeping in mind that we're working within the existing right-of-way to the best extent possible. And then we move on to Valley and Oakview. variations on a similar theme. We're going to be replacing all the signal equipment at the intersection, replacing all of the handicap ramps, sidewalk. One thing I will note, you'll notice on these diagrams, we're showing traditional white crosswalks instead of the rainbow infill that you have there now. That is something that the rainbow colors is something the federal government will not pay for. So we're showing that on the plans right now. That's something as we move into construction that between the town and the county, we can work out what you want put back there. It's just something that the federal government doesn't want to pay for. So we don't want to show it on the plans at this point. But I wanted to point that out so you know that we haven't forgotten about it. Moving on to Oakland. Again, similar theme as far as what we're doing here. One of the changes here on the southwest corner of the intersection where the park is, we're going to be pulling the curb line in. There's a small section of Valley through there that gets very wide. We're trying to bring that curb return in to shorten the pedestrian crossings, make things a little more pedestrian friendly throughout the intersection. And then going on to Parker, this is near the high school. Similar configuration, we're looking to replace a lot of the sidewalk in the area, install new signal equipment. What we're doing, we're trying the best we can on the west side of Valley. If you know, the sidewalk is very narrow as it is. We're working within that area to get things replaced as best as possible. Again, this is all going to be similar to the equipment at Valley and Pearson, where it's all black powder coated signal poles. And then as we move on to the intersections in South Orange, 3rd Street, again, we'll be replacing the intersection. We're going to be adding some pedestrian bump outs. That serves two purposes, both to shorten the pedestrian crossings and tighten up the intersection, but it also gives us more room to get the equipment in that we need. We have, no, it's a little hard to see, is these green lines are the property lines. So there, in some cases, we need to adjust the roadway configuration to get the signal equipment and everything within the existing property line. So we don't have to take property from any of the adjacent owners. Moving on to 1st Street, this is actually going to be a new traffic signal. 1st Street, both sides of the intersection are a one-way away from the intersection. So this signal is for pedestrians only, that somebody comes up and pushes the button, or during the day, it's pre-timed. Traffic will stop to allow pedestrians to cross here. And in order to get the signal equipment in, we're adding bump outs to the intersection, narrowing things down. A lot of the light blue squares and circles you hear is new drainage equipment. Because of the amount of changes we're making to the intersection, we need to fix the drainage so that the water actually drains. So that's being done as well. And along the same line, we'll be repaving Valley up to South Orange Avenue to restripe the area consistent with changes that were already made on the other side of South Orange Avenue. There's only one through lane coming through now, so we can reclaim sort of that second through lane to better align the intersection. Then the other intersections in South Orange that aren't on Valley Street, Irvington and Prospect, similar situation. We'll be repaving it, modifying the curb lines. In this one case as well, we're also bringing a few of the curb lines in, particularly the southeast corner. We'll be bringing the curb line in to give us a little more room for our equipment and try and shorten some of the pedestrian crossings. At South Orange and Prospect, a similar situation. We're going to be adding the missing crosswalk, redoing the intersection. A lot of these bump outs are here, but we're just cleaning things up, putting in new signal equipment, updated crosswalks, again, variations on a theme. And then lastly, at South Orange Avenue in Ridgewood, a similar situation. We'll be redoing the intersection. There is one thing we noted, that was not in our original, is not on the plans or didn't make it onto this sketch, but we will add it is, since our original survey, don't block the box striping has been added at this intersection. So we'll make sure that gets back onto the plan so that can be added back into the project as well. So where we are, kind of the idea of where we are in the process, we're almost done developing plans. We have design plans into the county for review. They're checking them to make sure that we did our job and we met all the requirements. We have next step after that is we have these sorts of meetings where we're getting some input from the public, some comments, and then we have to get, and that's necessary to get all of our required approvals. We also have our environmental document into NJDOT for review right now. Completion, these sorts of meetings are part of the requirements to complete that document. And that's just to make sure that our environmental review is that we're not adversely affecting anything as part of the projects. That's part of the requirements for a federally funded project. And then, of course, once we have all our approvals in place, we'll go to construction. So where we stand, where our next steps will be to address any comments we receive from this meeting and other public input we get, as well as any changes that may have to happen from the environmental documents. Then we're looking to submit what's called a PS&E, plan specs and estimate, to NJDOT in September. The state needs to approve the project before we can go to bid. We're expecting we'll get that notice late this year in November timeframe. That'll allow the county to go through its bidding process and retain a contractor over the winter, with construction to start March of next year. We're expecting it'll take around 6 months to complete the project. And then the end of 2023 is when we deal with all of the closeout paperwork and finish up the federal grant. So I apologize for going quickly. I'm here to address any questions or comments you have. And also either tonight or within the next 2 weeks after this meeting, any additional comments or questions can be sent to Asif Mahmood at the county, and we'll make sure that they get addressed and answered as part of the project. I believe there was, in addition to this information, there is also a copy of the notice on Essex County's website under the Public Works group. So you can go to that website. That'll give you this information as well in a similar format. And we'll be able to make the presentation available both on the county's website and to the towns shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fischinger. We appreciate this presentation. I'm going to allow Township Committee members to ask any questions or state any remarks. Anyone? And please stop sharing so we can see folks. Okay, first Township Committee members. Ms. Adams, sorry, I'm just seeing you now. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the county for working on this project. You know, it seems like forever ago, Asif, that we were out there at Baker and Valley Street and Tuscan and Valley looking at the situation. I have a few questions. And while I mentioned Baker, if you could possibly pull up the Baker intersection slide. When we were out there, and I see if you might remember this, we talked about you are pulling out the sidewalk on the northwest side of the intersection. What we had talked about on site all those years ago was pulling out the southwest corner for a couple of reasons. That's where the country club, you know, it abuts the country club, right? It's a really narrow sidewalk. And when we talked about pulling out that curb to allow, because that's where all the Maplewood middle school kids walk, and it's often very crowded and they even step into the street. So you have school kids and commuters walking along there, and pulling that side out, either equal with the northwest corner or, you know, sort of the same dimensions, but pulling that out would allow for sight distance for the drivers in the right turn lane, which doesn't exist right now, which is why there's a no turn on red there. And it would allow for more space on that sidewalk, making that sidewalk wider at that corner, because there's fence and bushes on the country club property that prohibits kids from walking inside the sidewalk, and therefore they're forced to step not only onto Valley sometime, but onto Baker Street and at that corner. So I'd ask that you take a look at that for that intersection. It would either further narrow the pedestrian crossing on Baker, or just make it equidistant. But it was a problem that we pointed out on site, and it exists now even when you're walking. There's two paths of pedestrians walking opposite, and there's literally and we've just recently gotten complaints about the walking along the country club from Tuscan Road to Baker Street, so that it's so narrow. So to the extent that we can make improvements, if not along the walkway between Tuscan and Baker, then certainly at the corner at Baker and Valley. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Joe.
So when we looked at the design, we looked to move things over as best we could, so a vehicle can still swing the right turn. And it's a little hard to see on this at this scale, but we are pulling that curb line out as much as we can, and widening the sidewalk as best as we can through there. That's something we can take another look at to make sure we're widening it as much as possible. But also what we are doing is widening the sidewalk. We are bringing that curb line in a little and getting the signal equipment out of the middle of the sidewalk, so at least the sidewalk is clear for people to walk through. So we are making some adjustments to it. It's not as dramatic as the other corner because we have more room to work with. But we are making some revisions to that.
Right. And one of the other things we talked about in narrowing that, and Paul, you might be able to remember this with me, is that, and especially since there's new installation of signalization equipment, this gives the opportunity to shift that, those two lanes, to kind of shift the signal north, so that you can shift those two turning lanes coming out of Baker onto Valley toward the middle. And that gives you more room for the turning radius from vehicles coming off of Baker onto Valley. And it also allows more ability to widen that corner sidewalk.
Hey, hi, this is Committeeman McGehee. Sorry, my camera's acting up. To add a couple of questions, adding on to this, as we make recommendations, what's the process? I mean, all these recommendations which Ms. Adams outlining, are they still feasible with this process, or are they just suggestions at this point, taking into consideration the funding?
They
No,
were,
there's still. Go ahead, Asif.
okay. They were, sent it to us, and we reviewed that. Also, on this particular location, Baker and Tuscan, we have the right of way issues. And also, if we extend the ramps and the turning radius, then we will not be able to make a turning radius for the delivery trucks or the heavy trucks. So that's also a challenging issue. But as Joe pointed out, we're gonna adjust the traffic signal equipment placement so that we can have maximum width of the sidewalk, and also we can have over here and on this location and the other location, Tuscan, we're going to have a LPI, lead pedestrian interval. That will also help the pedestrians and to cross these crosswalks. And that was the challenge. I remember that, Paul was able to share those information with us. And as Councilwoman Adams, I mean, she is saying, and we did address those issues to the maximum we can adjust. And there is a right-of-way issues where the fence is on Baker and also on the Tuscan. Go ahead, Joe, you can add some more.
So where we are in this process, the intersections have not been built. That's the whole point of this process, is to hear everyone's comments and suggestions. And that's something as we finalize the plans, we can work with your engineer, work with Paul to confirm that what the town is looking for, that we're accommodating to the best we can within the limits. Where, as Asif pointed out, we're very sensitive to not wanting to take property. That's both from standpoint of not wanting to take people's property, and also that adds years to this process. So we also want to, we're trying to work within the guidelines to get this delivered at the right way, but also in a timely manner.
That's perfect.
Yes,
No, I appreciate it. So one more question, and can I share my screen? I don't know who's sharing. Can I stop sharing for a second? Amazing, thank you. All right. So I have a question about another intersection, also more school related, if anything. This is by Parker and Valley here at Columbia High School. And I noticed in the design, I think you see me with my mouse, that you put the bump out in, which I understand the rationale provided. But one of the problems we have, and I know this firsthand as having a child who's at Columbia CHS, is that we have a huge pileup of people trying to turn here off of Parker onto Valley, and also the other way. And as I see these bump outs as you're softening and narrowing, I'm actually wondering if we can go in the opposite direction and widen it. So almost to a point you could look at putting a three-way in here to get a turn. And I'm not an engineer, but there's a lot of bottleneck. And as many people know, we're going to be doing a development right up here where I'm pointing, which is only going to, to a certain add to some of the traffic volume there. So I'm kind of asking if, since we're in assessment mode and nothing's been ironclad, can we actually look at another version where we actually widen these arteries on Parker to help relieve some of that traffic during 9 months, 10 months of the school year, of the year, and also on Valley as well.
So that's something we'll, talk to Essex County and see what we can do with it. I'll be honest, one of the issues there will be confirming if we have enough property to even consider that. I know we already have right-of-way issues at this intersection. In fact, actually, the existing traffic signal on the corner of the high school isn't even on county right-of-way. But that's something we'll talk to the county and see if it's something we can accommodate, if widening to provide that left turn is feasible. I know on the opposite side of Parker, because of the locations of the buildings, we wouldn't be able to put the corresponding left turn to go towards South Orange, but that's something we can look at before we finalize the plans.
Perfect. I appreciate that. I think that'd be a big win for the area there. And also thank you to Asif. And Asif, I want to personally shout out to you. I was a pain in your side about the prospect of stoplight for 5 years going, and congratulations and thank you again for your effort with Jody and the county for getting that done, and Paul as well. So it's been pedestrian safety has been near and dear to my heart for the last 5.5 years. I'm happy to see us continue this process. So Mayor, I yield the floor back to you.
Thank you, Committee Member McGehee. I want to go back to Committee Member Adams, who I'm not sure if she was finished with her questions.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I wasn't. So I just wanted to ask a couple more about, and I appreciate you, Paul will bring our concerns about Baker, and we certainly don't want you to take property where it can be helped. And I think there might be room to shift those 2 lanes and still get the turning radius. So Paul and I have talked about it in the past, and we talked about it, so let you take care of that, Paul. Thank you. The other, I just wanted to know about the signalizations along Valley and the synchronization of those signals and how that is going to work. I know the Pearson one has worked pretty well overall, the new signal. So will all those new signals will all be retimed and synced in some way, I assume?
Yes, they'll be retimed as part of the implementation, and all of the signals in this project will be connected to the county central monitoring system. And one of the things that does is that also provides the coordination, that there's a central system back at Asif's office that sets the coordination for the entire corridor. So that'll be put on all the signals. That'll not only set the timing, it'll keep it in sync. And if there are any problems where it drops out of synchronization for some reason, an alert comes on to the county so they can go out there and make adjustments or repairs. So all of the lights in this project will be connected into that system. The county, I don't want to speak for the county, but their policy now on any of these projects is to connect all new signals into their interconnection system.
So Joe, I just wanted to add one more. So the new traffic signal that we just installed, Pearson Road and South Pearson, that will also be a part of synchronization of this whole corridor from Melbourne up to the Valley and South, First Street and Third Street.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'd ask if you could consider some striping at the bottom of Harvard Avenue at Valley, right before Tuscan, with regard to that don't block the box kind of striping you were talking about. I forget what other intersection it was, but it's a pretty consistent problem there, and impacts, people leaving the school area and pickups and drop-offs, and it would help in the flow while people are stuck at the light for people to be able to get out there. So that would be something I'd ask you to look at. And
Maybe
that's
Tuscan as well.
sorry.
Maybe Tuscan as well. Don't block the box. They sit in the intersection there a lot too.
Yeah. I don't want to overstripe, but I also, maybe we could do something simple that gets the message across.
Councilwoman, do not blocks is at Melbourne Avenue and Valley Street when you are making a right turn from. God bless you. And so that was the reason people were trying to make a right turn, and nobody was allowing them to make a right turn. That's the reason I put that box over there. And for Baker and Tuscan, I don't think it is warranted. And as you said, too much striping, then you will see a lot of paint on the small portion of the Valley Street. Then it's not gonna be visually. And so wherever it is warranted, most of these locations, they're going to have a no turn on red sign. So the traffic on Baker or Tuscan, they will be stopping when they have a red light. So no turn on red. So that's a whole purpose of this. Make it easy, accessible, and have a continuous flow of traffic on Valley Street. Valley Street is a only one lane in each direction. That also constrains us. If you took any location, even with few seconds, it's gonna back up, especially during rush hour, morning and afternoon rush hour. I've been there several times just to watch this new traffic signal that we put. I mean, it just right now, thanks God, it's working. But it's gonna be a chaos if we don't adjust.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Mayor, we might want to consider that capital cost for I don't want to do the rainbow stripe at Oakview if it's going to be ripped up next year. So maybe we need to just give that some thought.
Yeah, we're holding off on that until it's done.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, we'll discuss that internally, but yeah, thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeLuca.
Thank you. So, Asif, thank you for your work on this. And I remember when we walked this 5 years ago, when we came to the bottom of the crescent along Valley there, it's a very long crossing there along Valley. And we talked about having some kind of a pedestrian island possibility in the middle of that. Is that still on the table?
That we can go back and reconsider that, but I don't think that I was in that group.
Yeah, maybe you weren't. You were may have been in the other group.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just trying to get off the hook. I understand.
No, we were.
He was in my group. I was in his group. I'll vouch for you.
Yeah, no, I was. Yeah. So maybe you could continue to talk about that with Paul.
That yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor, part of that group, and there was a concrete refuge island that was discussed at that location, and we'll continue to discuss that.
Okay, thank you. And then I don't have a question about this, Asif, but if you could give us an update on Irvington Avenue after we're done with this.
Yes, sure. I will. I mean, if you want me to update you, the good news is we started this project phase 2 today. This morning, we installed the construction signs.
That's a great update.
And we have started at Hillcrest Road and going towards the Parker.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Committee Member Kripe.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mahmood, thank you so much for your presentation as well as the other mayor. To carry over some of the conversation that committee person Nikki brought up, we have at Parker already a bump out for making space for people who park along Valley Street. And my biggest concern with that whole area that Committeeman McGehee mentioned, it does become congested. Has there been any consideration for different ways of organizing traffic? I know you said Valley is going to be the major focus, and there's going to be some growing pains, very much like Chief Duvall talked about with the whole, you're going to have to turn your car off and take the keys with you initiative to keep your car from being stolen. Is there any consideration being given to possibly making certain areas, like you said, no rights on reds, which are going to break some hearts, the additional boxes to force people to slow down and take a breath before they come through the intersection? Is there some consideration, or has there been any consideration into potentially limiting certain directions you can turn? The biggest problem at the intersection of Valley and Parker is the number of people who want to turn left. And that's a big problem. And I've been seeing places in the city where people are limited at certain times of day from making a left-hand turn. Has that been considered as a way to kind of alleviate some of that logjam that happens there? Again, it's an education piece. People are going to just have to learn how to reschedule or rejigger their commute, but no left turns would save a lot of the kids dashing across the street. That single crossing guard who is killing himself trying to keep those kids safe, and frustrated drivers who are just trying to get to work.
So we didn't look at that specifically. That's something I can talk with the county and see if it makes sense. The one thing we would have to look at is to make sure where those left turns are going, that we don't just move the problem. I don't want to move them to another location. One of the things we're calling for right now at Parker is a dedicated pedestrian phase. So when the kids need to cross, everybody stops. So that's the way we're calling for it now. That's something I'll talk to we'll work with the county and see if it's something that's worth implementing. So the concern would be to make sure that we're not just moving that problem to another intersection and instead of fixing it.
Can I just do a follow up on this? And could someone put up that intersection of Parker? Because Ms. Kripe said something that I want to point out, because that, Joe, are you able to put that? Thank you.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
Okay,
That little bump out right there.
so this bump out was created for the bus, not for cars.
I've never seen a bus pull up.
No, because there's no more bus. The 31 bus doesn't run anymore. So this used to be the pull off for the bus to pick up people, particularly the high school kids. And they used to take the bus down the Valley to South Orange. But the 31 bus doesn't run anymore. So I guess the question is, and I think this bump out here is put here to protect this indent. So I guess I'm wondering if there can be something here that can be shaved off some to make this an easier right, because we don't have this bus stop anymore.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I just
And
wanted
it
to.
does tend to be a place where the kids stack up deep when they're all trying to cross. They line up in that hole. So
That's correct.
As you mentioned earlier, they stand in the street waiting for an opportunity, and they just cross in mass, not even ants.
Yeah, 100% correct with Ms. Kripe. This is a critical intersection.
So just so I understand what you're asking, is that you're saying to eliminate the bump out to provide more sidewalk through that area, eliminate the pull off that used to be for the bus and reclaim that as sidewalk? Or are you saying to pull the curb line back to allow the cars to make the turn easier?
I'm saying
Can we do a bit of both?
You're the engineer.
Can we do a bit of both? I mean, it's
Yeah.
a fairly big intersection, but at the same time, the sidewalk is very narrow, and there are a lot of people who are trying to get across.
Yeah, I do not believe this was meant to be a car drop off. This was meant to be a bus stop. It is turned
What?
into a car drop off.
Actually, it's become parking spaces.
And a parking
People
lot,
park.
right?
Yeah.
And
On
so
the-
without a bus running here, and there is not going to be another bus coming on Valley, ever. So I think you ought to take a look at this and reflect that is no longer a bus stop, and whether that becomes a larger sidewalk or a shaved bump out here or something different or a combination, I think that's up to you.
Councilman Victor, at this corner, it is a northeast corner, right, Joe? We have a right of way issue over here.
Yes,
Yes,
it's the northeast corner. You can see, and it's a little hard to see, the green line,
yes.
and the right of way line. So we already have work outside of the right of way. Simply so the existing signal equipment is actually on Board of Ed property. So we have to be cognizant of that right of way line. But
You know,
I think
we're
we
all the
can make
government.
adjustments.
We're all the government.
Yeah,
Us, you, we're all the government. We're on the same team. We're wearing the same
Yeah.
colors.
100%.
So the right of way line means what? We have to avoid crossing it, or we have to get the permission to go beyond it? I don't understand what the right of way line is.
So typically we would need, if the county wants to build roadway or public things they have to stay within their right of way line. This is a little bit of a unique case because while there's a property line, the property owner is also a public entity. It's the school. So it's a lot easier to get the property or get permission to use the property since it's already a public entity. If it was a private home, it'd be a lot more difficult to acquire the property to do the work.
Yeah, I think this is a conversation that we can have with the governing body, with the Board of Ed and the district. I mean, we
Agreed.
have exactly. We have a relationship with them. We work with them on many things, including we bonded for $161 million to improve our schools. And this, to me, as Mr. DeLuca articulated, and Ms. Kripe as well, would be an improvement to that intersection traffic flow in our community. So this is something that I'm bullish on. I think we could definitely do this.
Okay, could we stop sharing now, please?
Sorry.
Are there any other comments from the governing body? Okay, let's open it up to public comment. Mr. Waltz, can you take over and identify members of the public who wish to comment on this?
Yes, Mayor. First up, we have Lisa Dwyer Mattia. We'll convert you to a panelist in like 3 minutes for your comments.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor Dathis. Lisa Dewey Mateo here. I live on Burnett Street across from the middle school. First of all, thank you for this great presentation, and thanks to the town and the county for supporting this super important project for both the traffic flow, but also pedestrian. My main comments and questions were about the same corridor that Councilwoman Adams was talking about, or the same stretch of road between Baker and Tuscan that abuts the golf course. I appreciate what was suggested and the follow-up on some of those items, so thank you for that. In addition to that, I do wonder if there's any appetite for discussions with the golf course about potentially gaining a couple of feet, because I think that would make a huge difference. So that's the first sort of suggestion. And the second one is, if not working within that right of way, if there's any appetite to look at things like a barrier, like what we have under the underpass on Baker Street, that prevents kids specifically from stepping out into Valley. So those are the two additional recommendations or suggestions that I was hoping to add to the list. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your input. We appreciate that.
Mayor, next we have Joan Crystal. And as a reminder to the attendees, if you could please turn your camera on when addressing the Township Committee, that would be greatly appreciated. Mayor, we have Joan Crystal. We'll convert you to a panelist, and I have 3 minutes to speak. Joan, you're muted.
Muted.
And your camera's not on.
Mute. Okay.
There you go. We can hear you now, Joan. Welcome.
Okay. My concern is from a pedestrian point of view with the intersection of Baker and Valley. Right now, we have a problem with traffic running the yellow light, and when the traffic has a red light, the 3 seconds that are currently allowed for pedestrians to cross without traffic making the turn is taken up by this traffic, and it becomes impossible during certain times of the day to safely cross at that intersection. And with no sidewalk continuing from Baker to Tuscan on the east side of the road, this means that you're basically waiting until there's enough of a break in the traffic to be able to cross. Is there anything that can be done from an engineering point of view, either with traffic signals, maybe a dedicated pedestrian interval, just like you're proposing for Parker and Valley?
On the Baker, yes, it's gonna be a Baker and Tuscan. Right now we have a lead pedestrian interval on Tuscan, and we're gonna introduce another one at Baker. So there's gonna be a lead pedestrian interval because these two are the heavily, pedestrian occupied areas. So these intersection will be lead pedestrian interval.
Thank you.
I think we're also connecting the sidewalk on the east side as well, right? We're making that connection as part of this. Asif?
Yes, connection, yes. Sidewalk will be connected, yes.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Ms. Crystal. Who do we have next, Mr. Waltz?
Mayor, next we have Doug Greenfeld. We'll convert you to a panelist, and I have 3 minutes to speak. You are muted.
Yes, hi, good evening. Doug Greenfeld. I live on at 692 Valley Street. Actually, the Pearson intersection touches the front of my yard, so I'm very familiar with that project. First off, I just want to commend the county for all its work on this. The amount of funds that were pursued through the NJTPA and managing that process and securing those funds. It was a very large amount of funds that the county was able to secure. Very impressive, and I just want to commend the county for doing that. And it's all for safety projects. So a couple of comments on. And I also want to commend you for installing LPI's lead pedestrian intervals. I think that'll make a big difference, and that's a great policy that the county is doing those. I have a number of questions. I'll run through my questions and then I'll let you all respond. First off, and Joe, great job on the intersection and the 25-foot turning radius. So that was the bump outs are working out very nicely, I think. My question though is on the number of signal heads at the intersection, and it seems like there are a lot of signal heads at the new intersection, more than it seems is warranted for just one lane in each direction. And then it seems like that number of, and I bring it up on this meeting because from those drawings, it looks like that's carried through to all of the other new intersections.
30 seconds.
Okay. I'm not going to be able to finish in 30 seconds, so I hope everyone will grant me a little bit more time. I have just a short list.
Mr. Greenfeld, we will grant you a little more time, but if it sounds like you have a lot of questions, and I know you're also a professional in this practice, we can also submit your feedback in writing. Okay, so you don't have to feel like you're going to get through everything right now, because we are already running way over with this one item on this agenda. So maybe pick the two largest concerns of yours, and we could submit the rest of your feedback and concerns in writing, if that's okay with you.
I would like to hear the response on this, so I'll try to go through them very quickly and concisely.
Terrific, thank you.
So on Valley and Tuscan, where you're widening the sidewalk, are you widening to the full edge of the right of way? On the opposite side of Valley, there are homes that don't have sidewalk. Have you considered extending the sidewalk from Baker so those residents don't have to walk across lawns to get to Baker Street? At Oakland, where you did the bump out and then the road is wide again, have you considered just narrowing the roadway generally? And then just one big idea, let me just put it out there, triple roundabouts, Tuscan, Baker, and the Crescent, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Could we have the team respond to those, please?
Sure. Hopefully I got everything, Doug. If not, feel free to give me a call afterwards. We can discuss it offline as well. As far as the number of signal heads, we typically we're following county standards, which is 2 far side heads and 1 near left signal head, and then supplemental ones where necessary for turn lanes. I don't know that we really can reduce the number of signal heads too much. A big point of this project is to make the heads more visible so that people can see them. As far as Valley and Tuscan and widening to the right of way, I will need to look at the plans to see for sure how much we're widening. But as it looks like, at least on the west side, we are bringing the sidewalk as close to the right-of-way line as we can. In most cases, pretty much right on top of it, unless there's a hedgerow or something in the way. As far as the sidewalk on the opposite side of Valley through there, the county did look at it, and ultimately the right-of-way and grading impacts were going to be too much to be done out of this project. While there might be enough right-of-way for the sidewalk itself, we would have to regrade back into private property to get the sidewalk in. And then as far as Oakland, that's something we can talk with the county and see if we want to pull that curb in the rest of the way or leave it striped as it is now. It's something I'll bring up with the county and see if it's something we can consider and address.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you again, Doug. If you feel shortchanged, by all means, please submit the rest of your feedback, concerns, questions to us in writing, and we will relay it along to the team, okay, for their consideration. I don't want you to feel shortchanged.
I don't, but thank you.
Sure. Do we have another member of the public, Mr. Waltz, who wishes to comment on this?
Yes, Mayor. Next, we have Tegan Culler. We'll convert you to a panelist tonight, 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to the committee for the hard work on this and to the county and for opening this up for public comment. I'm one of the residents and homeowners on that stretch of Valley Street between Baker and Tuscan that Mr. Greenfeld was just referring to. I hear you saying that you considered and it was not possible to have a sidewalk on that side of the street. We would very much love to have a sidewalk. I just want to say this is something that I have been speaking with Mayor Daff about for some time. We would really like to have it. There are 7 kids under the age of 18 just in that little stretch of houses. People are walking across lawns. I worry about it. It's hard for us to get to Tuscan Elementary. And so that's something that would be just absolutely wonderful if there were any way to consider it. And obviously I can't speak for the other people on that stretch, but for myself as a property owner, we would be willing to cede some of our property just to have the opportunity to have a sidewalk. The other thing that I wanted to raise is that ever since for about the last year and a half, the timing of the lights at Tuscan and at Baker on Valley has not been in sync. They no longer turn red at the same time. And that creates, I don't know if folks have noticed, but it has changed the traffic pattern on Valley a lot. On a personal note, it's very hard for me to get out of my driveway, but it does create some real backups there. So I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention if there is anything to make that small change. But my big concern is the sidewalk. If it can be revisited, we would love to have that opportunity. Thank you.
So the sidewalk, we'll talk to the county and see what we can do. As far as the timing of the lights, I think Asif has already heard you, and that's in the short term. I think that's something the county can probably take a look at as a maintenance issue. Once the signals are replaced, the new system comes with all new timings. However, I think in the interim, county maintenance can go out there and see what they can do to fix the timing of those 2 lights.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kohler. It's really good to see you. Thank you for joining us, providing valuable input and feedback. Mr. Waltz, any other members of the public who wish to comment on the safety improvements?
I see no one else, Mayor.
Okay, seeing no one else, we're going to close the public comment portion of this presentation. I want to thank the team at NV5 for your tremendous work on this already. And I want to thank the county for Asaf. You're terrific. We've always had a very strong relationship with you, sir. You've been very responsive to our needs, and I want you to know that, and I want your fellow mates at the county to know that. Mr. Kittner and his team work very well with you, and we appreciate the amount of work that you put into improving safety at our intersections and crosswalks. So thank you very much for being with us tonight. You survived the hot seat for now.
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the county of Essex, appreciate that, we always have work with the township of Maplewood, and especially I have worked now several years with Paul, and before that, a lot of engineers came, and also with the former mayor, Victor DeLuca. And, we have good relation with the Township of Maplewood, and, continue, we will have to have this relationship. But the thing is, we have to understand this project is mainly traffic signals and roadway improvement. We will try to include the sidewalks also, the turning radius, all those we will be able to. If we cannot adjust, we will ask, please, review these plans and give us your comments. We are in touch with Paul Kittner, and we're gonna submit him plan. He's gonna have a chance to review, and he's gonna make his comments also. But this please understand that this project is for traffic signals and roadway improvement. A part of the sidewalk will be included if it is warranted and feasible for the project needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Duly noted. I think Committee Member McGehee will have the final word. You have your hand up, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. And actually, it's just a quick point of order. I know we just closed the public comment for this session, but it's also public comment on any agenda items only. So we may need to open that back up. And then also, since one of the discussion items is relating to the sub pump, I'd like to request that Mr. Kittner stay for that discussion.
Okay, Mr. Kittner, are you okay with that? Are you available to stay for the sump pump discussion?
Sure.
Terrific.
Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you, Mr. McGehee. I was not intending to close public comment. I was only referring to the presentation, so thank you for that.
No worries.
Okay, so thank you again to the team. Please don't go anywhere because we might have additional public comments, and this is on the agenda, as Mr. McGehee just noted. Mr. Waltz, we're opening up for our first official public comment on any agenda item. Do we have any takers?
Good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We'll now begin the first public comment portion of our meeting on agenda items only. If any meeting attendee would like to address the committee at this time, please use the raise your hand function. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. I see no one there.
Okay, well, we want to thank the residents who did ask questions and provide valuable feedback to the team regarding the safety improvements at the 11 intersections along Valley. And we will have a second public comment period for any agenda item, for anything other than just agenda items coming up again towards the end of the meeting. Thank you again to NV5 and to the county. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Before we close the public comment, this public comment period, I want to offer our county liaison, Ms. Valentina Richardson Green, the opportunity to address the governing body and the community. Ms. Green?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I just have 2 items. The county is currently doing a summer project homeless pop-up project where we had our first event July 13th. We were at Mulberry Commons. The next event will be August 17th, and the final one will be October 19th. At these pop-up events, we'll be doing health screenings, vaccination, mental health services, employment services, veteran services, giveaways, and other homeless prevention services. I included the flyer in the chat window for anyone who wanted to share, but the upcoming event is August 17th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Orange Park parking lot in Irvington, New Jersey. And the second item that we have for my particular division, the Division of Family Assistance and Benefits, we are looking for family service worker trainees. So we have an announcement out in the papers as well as internal. I shared that information as well. We're looking for individuals to help us with processing applications. With COVID, we've seen a significant increase in the number of eligible recipients for our SNAP, our food stamp benefits, as well as for family care. So in an attempt for us to keep up with the increase in the workload, we're looking to hire additional staff. So if you can share that with anyone, that closing date is coming soon. It'll be July 29th, but definitely looking forward to anyone who wants to assist with processing of applications for our Essex County residents. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions from my colleagues for Ms. Green? Seeing none, Mr. Waltz or any members of the public wish to comment or ask a question of Ms. Green?
I see no one, Mayor.
I see no one either. Just want to make sure. Thank you, Ms. Green. You're welcome to stay with us. We always appreciate you coming forth and presenting with us all of these important services the county is providing to our residents and beyond. All right, we're moving on. We have 2 ordinances on final passage. Ms. Fritzen?
Yes, Mayor, we have number 7 is ordinance on final passages. Bond ordinance number 3065-22, providing for phase 3 of the local unit's allocable share of the flood mitigation facilities project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union Counties, buying in the Township of Maplewood, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, the local unit, appropriating $2,750,000 in bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Are there any governing body members who wish to comment or remark on this bond ordinance? Okay, seeing none, I'm opening it up to the public. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this bond ordinance number 3065-22? Mr. Waltz?
I see no one, Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing none, we're closing the public hearing, and I call for a motion. Mr. McGehee.
Thank you, Mayor. I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a past ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Thank you, sir. I second your motion. Roll call.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cripe?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes. Ms. Fritzen?
Yes, Mayor, also on final, ordinance number 3064-22. And that is calendar year 2022 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank per NJSA 4-45.14.
This ordinance has also been published, copies posted on bulletin boards in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Any members from the governing body who wish to comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, we're opening it up to the public for public comment. Mr. Waltz, any members of the public who wish to comment on this?
I see no one, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Seeing none, closing public hearing. And I'm going to move this. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on August 2nd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Can I get a second?
I will second your motion.
Thank you. Roll call.
Okay, on final passage. Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cripe?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes on final.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes on final as well. Thank you all. This moves us into the 8th item on our agenda tonight, the 2022 municipal budget. Township Clerk Fritzen, I believe you have an introduction.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start with an introduction. A lot of the information tonight is on the agenda, so we'll probably not find the script necessary this evening, but I'm going to start out by saying that this is Mayor the time and the date fixed for the public hearing on the 2022 municipal budget. The budget was approved by the governing body and was advertised as required by law, together with notice of hearing for this time. So the first thing, Mayor, you probably would want to have the budget presentation by the CFO and then go into the hearing.
We certainly do. Do we have our CFO with us?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Welcome, CFO Koloje. Thank you for being with us tonight. I believe you have a presentation.
I do. Let me figure out how to share screen here. And let's get, whoops, I lost you guys. There we go. Share screen. Is it actually sharing?
Not yet.
Please stand by. Let's try this again. Share screen. There we go. And share.
Yep, you're definitely.
Splendid.
Thank you.
All right, so we will try and go through this quickly, Mayor, because I know it's been a long evening for everyone. This is a budget breakdown of what we've been dealing with when we put together the 2022 budget. We'll start out by talking about some of the budget pressures that we've had to deal with. From 2021, we had a PBA settlement for $187,000. IDA rolled in September and put $845,000 on the books for us. We passed a pandemic revenue note in 2020, and this is the year in 2022 that we have to start paying it back to the tune of $400,000. And we had revenue shortfalls due to the pandemic of almost $700,000 as well. This year's budget includes debt service increasing by $332,000, recycling costs going up by almost $300,000, and our pension and benefits obligations to the state running somewhere around $265,000. All of that created a $3.2 million hole that we started out with. Some of the goals that were set, despite the fact that we were facing a daunting challenge in terms of a $3.2 million deficit, is that we added a crisis intervention social worker who is on board. And we also assumed our share of the Soma Two Towns coordinator that up until last year was funded through a grant, which is no longer available. The other goals were restoring services such as senior citizen services, the jitney services, recreation programs, and the woodland rentals and cultural affairs coming back to full life. And then we also set the goals of infrastructure investment. We're continuing to be very aggressive, and we're dealing with infrastructure needs that are stormwater management, road resurfacing, environmental abatement. So this is a rather ambitious goal despite the challenges that we faced this year. We should have put the budget up for introduction in April, adoption by May. Unanticipated expenditures showed up in between that derailed us. One of those was the fire department's overtime, which was originally budgeted for $300,000, doubled by the time we had reached April to $600,000. We were also facing a loss of some revenue from a liquor license for $450,000. And because the insurance money did not come in 2021, we now had to deal with a $235,000 deferred charge that needed to be paid down. This underscores the issues that we're having with the state regarding underfunding. I know that we've passed our resolution. The governor's budget regionally has taken up this cause. Most disappointingly, we're only going to see $95,000 this year. But this illustrates what the issue has been for over a decade. You can see from the red line at the bottom that our state aid has been flat since 2010. But had they followed the formula for the energy receipts tax, that would have been continually going up. Roughly $2.1 million that they've shorted us, or 5.48 tax points. To put that in perspective, if the state actually gave us what we were supposed to get, we'd be looking at a zero tax increase this year. So one of the other items that we have from a revenue perspective, and this basically shows that we are definitely heading in the right direction. Because of the pandemic, the state allowed municipalities, instead of only budgeting what they collected from the year before, we were allowed to take 3-year averages and utilize that instead. In 2021, we had 12 of those that we needed to do in order to balance our budget. Here we are in 2022. A lot of those are starting to perform back to pre-pandemic levels, and we only have 5 now that are requiring the 3-year average. This shows a little bit of what we're dealing with in terms of pension and benefits history. The bottom line is health benefits. The top line is pensions, and we can see that there is a significant increase over the course of the last 6 years, especially in the pension obligation that the state is starting to bill us. For years, starting with the Christie administration, the pension system has been underfunded deliberately to move money elsewhere to balance the state budget. They are slowly looking to address that, unfortunately, on the backs of municipalities. This shows us a 5-year history of our debt service and bonding down payments. The bottom green portion shows our capital improvement fund, which is our down payment. And we can see that it roughly tracks the same between what we have to pay in debt and what we are putting down as a down payment. And we have reached now $7.1 million required to pay our bonds and notes. On a side note, we just had a bond anticipation note sale today for $16.6 million. We did very well, came in at roughly 2.5%, considering that most of the towns have been going for over 3%. I'm very pleased with the results. It saves us about $100,000 in interest costs next year. That's the good news. The bad news is the sticker shock of last year. We had a $8.9 million bond anticipation note, and our interest costs were $89,000. So welcome to inflation. These are our recycling costs, and I think what's kind of important to look at is if we take a look at 2017 here, we can see that roughly for recycling, we spent $250,000, and now here we are in 2022, and we're spending over $750,000. That problem is probably not going to go away. This shows us a history of some of the overtime that we've been dealing with for the past 6 years. The yellow line at the top is the fire department. So the fact that we have this cutoff at this point is due to the fact that we now have a shared fire department with South Orange, and this is not going to be a liability for us in the future. This gives us a general idea of what our $53 million budget is going to look like. It breaks down, obviously, salaries being the largest chunk, statutory expenditures being the second largest chunk, other expenses and utilities being somewhat smaller. A little more down into the weeds, we can see that statutory is mostly debt service and pension. Health benefits is also a large chunk. In terms of utility costs, it's what we have to pay the joint meeting to take care of our sewage. That is the largest portion of that part of the budget. This shows us our salary and wages at 23%, or $23 million, roughly 44% of our budget, and it breaks it down according to each department within the township. Again, you can see from that last slide that it's mostly public service. In the other expenses category, DPW is the largest other expenses. The biggest chunk of that comes from having to deal with the recycling costs that have been increasing over the last 6 years. So this gets down to the nitty gritty of where we stand. Our tax rate this year is going to be 93 cents. Last year's rate was 88.2 cents, and that is a 4.8 cent increase, or roughly a 5.44% increase over last year. We take a look at the average assessed home, which is about $501,500. This year's tax bill for the municipal portion only will be $4663.95. Last year it was $4423.23, and we're looking at roughly a $240 increase, annual increase to the average assessed home, or your mortgage going up by roughly $20 a month. Just as a quick comparison to last year, where we went up $301 and increased the rate by 5.9 cents. We also have just this little chart here that shows not just the average assessed home, which is in yellow, but basically the assessment up and down, and gives us an idea of where you would see a tax increase for your municipal portion based on where your assessed value is. Those postcards go out in January. Now let me figure out how to stop sharing. Are there any questions?
Yes, are there any questions from governing body members at this time? This is very similar to the presentation that we gave at the introduction of the 2022 municipal budget. Thank you, Mr. Koloje, for providing additional context with your presentation this evening. I would say that, I think my colleagues and I would like to know, and I'm sure the residents of Maplewood are deserving to know, why we are going to be tabling the adoption of the municipal budget. Something that has never been done in the history of Maplewood. As far as I'm aware, I may be wrong about that, but that's what I've been informed. Do you have any explanation or statement you'd like to make?
I do, and in my first year in 2018, the budget was tabled until the following 2 weeks in order to amend it. I think we might have amended it last year as well. So it was tabled. But that being said, what's really the elephant in the room is the fact that we are adopting a budget and it's July already. And a large part of that, as we saw in the slide presentation, was due to the unexpected expenses of the fire department doubling the amount of overtime they needed, the insurance company not coming through with the money that they had promised us back in October, which then created a deferred charge that we needed to account for. And those two items combined forced us to basically redesign a budget. And our administrator diligently put together cuts for us in order to rebalance a budget that was balanced when we were ready to go back in March, end of March, beginning of April. But we were handed a $1 million hole when we were ready to introduce this budget, and we needed to address it. And it took several months to deal with. We are at the point right now, while we have introduced in June that the state, because we are using 3-year averages on 5 of our revenue lines, we're required to get state approval. We can't self-exam. This would have been a self-exam year for us. And so the issue that we're now dealing with is defending our budget to the state, who has been questioning some of our revenue sources, like the cannabis transfer fee that we added in, the joint meeting refund check that we used the 3-year average for. They're also questioning the GIF payment, the insurance payment that we put down in anticipation, because our administrator finally got word from them that they plan on actually sending us a check, although we don't have it in hand yet. So those are some of the issues that we're dealing with. They're also questioning our pool revenue. And so until we can get the state to approve us, we will not be able to adopt. Had we not taken those 3-year averages, that would have given us the ability to adopt. But if we had gotten rid of those 5 line items on averages, that would have created about a $600,000 hole in our budget, and we would have had to look for cuts. So that is embarrassingly the reason why we are so tardy on adopting a budget this year.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really a very fulsome response, Mr. Koloja. And I just want to state for the record, I meant no disrespect, and I definitely stand corrected for misspeaking. This isn't the first time that we've tabled adoption in this manner. So I want to correct the record for that, and thank you for correcting it. Okay, so seeing no members of the governing body wishing to ask questions or make.
No, I have a question.
Please.
You know, I think we may have tabled it, Mayor, but we've never not had a budget this late in the year. This is very embarrassing, and whatever reason. But have we also been approved? Isn't there another report that you mentioned that we haven't filed yet with the state?
The
annual financial statement, yes.
Yes. So what's the story with that?
So the annual financial statement is required in order to verify the numbers that we're using in our budget. So we're calling for $1.5 million in surplus. We need to show in our annual financial statement that we have at least $1.5 million in fund balance in order to utilize it. And so the annual financial statement is still a couple of days away from being filed. That is also holding us up at this point in time. But we expect to have everything resolved by the end of the week. And I know that the state is getting rather anxious. Essex County, for whatever reasons, has 8 towns that did not have budgets in place by July. And we all got letters from the state that said you are ordered to introduce a budget by July 21st, or they will just put a budget before the local finance board. I think Caldwell might be one of them. I'm trying to think of some of the other towns. Irvington might have been another one of them. So there were several towns over the last couple of weeks that just introduced their budget between last week and this week. We obviously introduced our budget all the way back in June in order to stay somewhat on schedule. And we anticipate that the state's going to give us our approval that we need, and we'll be able to adopt on August 2nd.
And who prepares the financial statement? Do we do it, or does the auditor do it?
We do it in conjunction with the auditors.
Okay, and in the past, we've had Samuel Klein on the calls when we've done budgets. Is there a reason why we haven't engaged them?
I'm going to engage them on August 2nd when we are ready to adopt.
So that was my follow-up question. When will we be adopting? August 2nd, the next.
We're anticipating being able to get approval from the state and adopt that August 2nd.
Yeah. Okay.
If that does not occur, we will need to call for a special meeting to adopt shortly thereafter.
Let's make it happen.
Let's shoot for August 2nd. I'll put you.
Yeah. So other questions or remarks from the governing body members before we open it up to the public? Okay, we're opening it up to the public hearing. At this time, Mr. Waltz, do we have members of the public who wish to comment on the 2022 municipal budget?
I see no one, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to say one more thing. I'm sorry, but Mr. Colosi, when you reported the overtime for fire, you cut it off at July 1st. But I just want, right, because of the South Essex Fire Department. I just want you to know that we still have a problem. We just have a joint problem with South Orange. So I think you've got to monitor that, because at the end of the year, we're going to bill each town what it cost, and any overtime that South Essex Fire Department incurs is going to come back to one or the other municipalities.
Yes, and it's going to be especially problematic because for the first 6 months of the year, we had the ability to control that. The administrator had the ability to tell the fire chief, here's what you need to do. They are now an entity unto themselves. So I anticipate that we are probably going to see a much larger number than we've seen for the first 6 months of the year. And we will need to deal with that come December with transfers from places where we can cut back on.
Okay, I just want to make sure you were aware of that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Waltz, one other opportunity for the public to comment if they wish. Do we have any members of the public? Any hands raised?
I still have no takers, Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Waltz, thank you, sir. We're going to close the public hearing. Ms. Fritzen, I believe we have a resolution.
Yes, Mayor. Resolution number 242-22, which is.
I'm sorry, you're going to need to do 247-22, read by title first.
Okay. Resolution 247-22, which is resolution to read budget by title.
Okay, so
I want to move that, please, Mayor, and we'll have a second by Mr. McGee.
certainly I move the passage of this ordinance. Well, it's
No,
not.
resolution.
Yeah, I move the adoption of resolution 247-22.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll have resolution 242-22, which is adoption of the 2022 municipal budget. And Mayor, I believe you'll want to call for a motion to consider tabling that item.
Yes, I move that we table resolution 242-22. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're moving on to reports from departments. I don't see any department heads with us other than CFO Koloje, who just presented the budget. So this brings us to administrative reports. We're going to start with Township Administrator Grimes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I'm going to report that, as you are aware, the new email exchange server is up and running at capacity at this point. All emails have been transferred over. All of the old emails should be in your email boxes. All the folders that were created should be there. It's a little different on the web-based version that I'm sure you're seeing over the last week or so. It takes a little getting used to, and there's some nuances that are a little different, such as the autofill is not coming in for any non-township related emails. And trust me, I know how annoying that is. But aside from that and some of the small nuances, this is a significant upgrade that, enhances our internet security and enhances our firewall systems and, hopefully prevents any, significant attacks, similar to to ones that may have occurred in other municipalities over the years. So, surprisingly, and almost, I guess, not ironically, within the last 48 hours, just after we launched and we're happy we were up and running, there was actually a nationwide Microsoft 365 outage that affected our system, but it didn't infiltrate our system. It was an actual national outage. So, when you have everything up and running, unfortunately that happens. Oddly enough, when I launched this in my previous community, within a week, there was also a national outage on Microsoft 365. So I've had some bad luck with that, but I think it is up and running. And I think, you're going to find that it is a significantly better system once you get used to the nuance changes. I want to thank everybody on the staff and our IT staff from GTBM. We call them the Anthonys, Anthony Casella, Anthony Figueroa, who, spent the weekend here and then a subsequent couple of days making sure everybody was up and running. And, they put a lot of time and effort into this. So I'd like to thank them and the service they've been providing to the township. With that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Administrator Barnett, who will deliver the rest of the report on behalf of my office tonight.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Just a couple of quick things. So first off, our transition from SDL to GovPilot is still underway. That's slated to wrap up the end of July. We're doing our final data transfer this week for some of our construction modules, and then the report of concern module, which a lot of residents might recognize from SDL. It's where they go to report anything that would be sent on to DPW or code, for example. We're actually having our staff training for that within the next week, and then that'll be going live on the site. That's the next module that's slated to go live. Another update that we have for staff is that the CDC and NJDOH implemented new COVID quarantine policies that define folks who are fully vaccinated as those who have had a third booster within 5 months of their second vaccine or have had a fourth booster if qualified. So now, in order for staff members to avoid the quarantine period after an exposure, they need to be able to provide proof of that third booster shot or the fourth if applicable. And as part of our efforts to help people maintain compliance with this, the health department is going to be offering booster vaccinations to interested employees who can make an appointment with our public health nurse. And then on the topic of health, our health department has actually come up with a local health assessment that they're going to be circulating. Residents can find that in their township-wide e-blast going out this Friday. It's also going to be up on the website. And then in order to get some responses from more vulnerable populations, our health department has also identified some other places to deliver hard copies. That data will be kept anonymous, but it will be entered into the database then by our vulnerable populations coordinator, Talia. So we encourage everybody to complete that and give us the most accurate idea of the community's needs and thoughts on public health. And then last but not least, we have some township interns starting through the Youthnet summer program within the next couple of weeks. One will be in administration, one will be in DPW, and then one is going to be in the mayor's office, as you know, Mayor Daffis. And then we do have one other student who might be joining us for an interesting sustainability hybrid type of intern between a couple of different offices, but those conversations are still underway. So look forward to hearing more from them as well. But we've gotten to meet a few of them already and they seem really awesome, eager to get to know more, and we're excited to work with them.
That's terrific. Thank you both for your reports. Before I open it up for questions from my colleagues, I have a couple myself. I want to ask you both where we are with respect to compiling our policies or non-discrimination policies, and maybe also advising the committee, the township committee, as to any policies that we should engage in to further our non-discrimination in Maplewood Township. This is with respect to not just employee training and volunteer training, sensitivity trainings with law enforcement, but also beyond that regarding our contracting policies and ensuring that some of the vendors that we work with understand the values of the township, that they're offering opportunities that are inclusive, and with respect to generally increasing and expanding our municipal index rating with very important rating agencies out there. There are financial ratings, and then there are these other ratings that really increase our visibility and our attractiveness to incoming residents, to in-movers, if you will. The human rights campaign, for instance, has a municipal quality index, which rates municipalities of all kinds these days. They used to only do it for larger municipalities of at least 50,000 people and larger, but now they've opened it up to smaller municipalities, mid-range municipalities such as ours, to rate our LGBTQ equality index. The NAACP has a similar index. So I would really like us to work on, I know there's a lot going on and this is really hasn't been on the priority, and I completely understand. But as we get a little bit into a little quieter time, fingers crossed, over August and into early September, I would really like to start compiling these policies and getting us out there to these rating agencies to increase our profile as a township. Mr. Jimes, Township Administrator Assistant Barnett, any input on that? I know you haven't had the opportunity to really dive deep into this, and that's okay, but I just want to keep it on your radar.
Sure, I can address some of that. I did review all the policies that we had. It's in our policy stat system, so it's pretty easy to package that and just kind of take out the non-discrimination and the policies that would be applicable to the HRC's Corporate Equality Index, which I'm sure we would be looked on very favorably, and just simply based on the fact that the Joint Insurance Fund writes many of these policies for us to adopt. So I think by default you're going to find that we adhere to many of the ones that are policy related. I'm not concerned overly with that. As it relates to the training, I did reach out to the Joint Insurance Fund when this first came up a few meetings back, and they had indicated a willingness to pay for that type of training on our behalf for us, so we wouldn't have to spend any money. So I'm waiting to get some information from them on what exactly they offer to see if it meets the needs of what we're looking for. We'll take whatever they have, and if we can enhance on that, we will. Most of my conversations with the GIF and our risk manager recently have been just related to reimbursement. So as you mentioned, that kind of did fall off the table from our initial discussions. But as we're getting closer to that reimbursement, I'll make sure we put that back on the table. In looking at the HRC's Corporate Equality Index, I do have some notes on it because I did look at it as it relates to equal partner benefits, domestic partner benefits, employee resource groups. I think you're going to find that it's just really a matter of us putting the application in and packaging it all for them to rate, and we're going to end up probably with a very high rating. And anything that we might be missing on, I obviously have no doubt that this committee will adopt favorably. So we'll pick that up, and we'll roll with that, and get moving, and hopefully within the next 2 or 3 meetings have more of an action plan for everybody to move forward.
Thank you for that update. I appreciate it. I'm happy to work with you on that. I've helped other towns with their applications. I'm sort of an expert in this area, and I'd love for Maplewood to get 100 points, because I think we deserve 100 points. We've been way ahead of the curve before some of these other towns who have, we've inspired to do the same as we're doing, which is always a wonderful thing, right? I also would like to get an update on where we are with the SOMA 2 Towns for All Ages coordinator position. I think we're now moving in the direction of a full-time coordinator for both South Orange and Maplewood as a shared service, and sort of maybe looking at who would they report to, which town, and so on and so forth. Where are we with respect to that?
I had recent discussions with the administrator in South Orange before he departed. We did inform them that we would be amenable to them advertising the position and hiring the person and paying our share according to the agreement. In the past, that person would report to the South Orange administrator, and they would liaise to my office on a fairly regular basis as well. So that's in the hands of our friends in South Orange. We advised them that we were agreeable to that route. So we're going to let them move forward with that advertising and hiring process and be partners when that process is completed. But I'll follow up with that office tomorrow morning and see exactly where they are with that.
Terrific, terrific. And if at all possible, I'd like for Assistant Administrator Barnett to be our point person as we move forward in this initiative. I think it's important to funnel through township administration for various reasons. And I have a few other things, but in light of the time, 9:19, getting very close to 9:30 yet again, I want to open up the floor to my colleagues for their questions of you both, if there are any. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to make a motion that we extend our township committee meeting beyond 9:30 this evening. Do I have a second?
Second, Mayor.
Okay, so there we go. Once again, we have yet to hit 9:30, just saying. Next up, we have,
May just call for a vote on that, or just a.
Yeah, I was going to call for a vote, dear Mayor. Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mr. Desiderio, you're up next with any update, sir.
I have two things, Mayor. First, I think at the last meeting, I mentioned to you about the reval that was ordered by the Essex County Tax Board. I've sent to you the proposed form of RFPs. South Orange is ready to go. Our assessor is ready to go. I did get a call from the county administrator, county tax board administrator, asking us to move this forward. So I'm asking for your consent to put out the RFPs. This is not to give out a contract, but only to solicit the RFPs. And when they come back, however many we have, we can talk about the process for interviewing those candidates. I would suggest, well, let me do this first. So can I get a consensus as to whether or not you will authorize the going out for the RFPs for the reevaluation?
Can you give us to the end of the week?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate, having done this before, we made mistakes before because we were not explicit in the RFP about the interaction with the community.
That's fine.
I know it's, what is it, 84 pages or something like that, and I haven't been able to get through the whole thing, and some of us have talked about that. So if we could set a date, Mayor, and if we're not done, then Mr. Desiderio can move forward.
4 o'clock Friday this week, because the county is pressuring us and South Orange is ready to go. I don't want to delay the process any further.
So just so I understand, so if Mr. DeLuca has comments with regard to that, how am I to deal with those by 4 o'clock on Friday?
We will send them to you. If you don't hear from anyone, then
That I understand, but okay, so if Mr. DeLuca has comments, my assumption is that the committee is willing to accept those comments by way of amendment to the RFP.
Well, I think I'll share the comments with everyone. And if I'm off base, then people can let you know.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. And let me just add to the second part of that. So as you know, we're going out with this RFP with South Orange. So we're going to get proposals, and one of the reasons the county tax board suggested this and made a lot of sense is because we share the school district. I think you should consider, I'd ask you to consider the process for interviewing the candidates to do the reval. And when I say that, I mean, I think there should be some type of joint process with South Orange, because it wouldn't make a lot of sense for Maplewood to agree on company A and South Orange to agree on company B. I think it would make more sense for there to be some interaction so that everybody can get on the same page in terms of awarding the contract. So I just offer that as a suggestion, assuming South Orange wants to interview the candidates. I don't know that be necessarily be the case. It's always been Maplewood's history to interview those candidates. So I leave that for you consideration.
Thank you.
We won't have to worry about that till we get the response to the RFPs. The second thing is there's a resolution on the agenda 24422 that Mr. Kaloje and I talked about, and this is to adjust the assessed value on the affordable housing unit that Iron Ore is purchased and selling as part of their affordable housing obligation. So in order for the prospective purchaser of this unit to be able to get their financing, they have to show what the taxes are going to be based on the assessed value, which is in fact the sale price, which I believe is $91,000, as opposed to the assessed value, bear with me a second, of $272,000. So $91,636. So what basically has to happen is the assessor has to make that adjustment based on the sale price. We've generated a letter indicating that would be the case, but we just need you to pass this resolution as part of the consent agenda. I just wanted to explain it as to what's going on here. So this is part of the process. Iron Ore put one affordable unit as a rental within the unit on Baker Street, and this is the unit that they had for sale. The Township Committee did exactly the same thing with the Franklin Terrace property. When the Township had it, we made this adjustment. So again, on a cash flow basis, the purchaser of the unit could be able to show that they can carry the unit on a monthly basis. So that's what Resolution 244-22 is.
And Mr. Desiderio, the reason why we're doing this is because there's a deed restriction on that property that the purchaser cannot sell the property except for the affordable amount in the
Correct.
future.
Absolutely. There's a deed restriction, which our affordable housing coordinators have taken care of. And that'll go with the deed, and I think it carries for 30 years.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the context on that. And I believe you had a third item, Mr. Desiderio, or did I mishear that?
Nope, just those two. That's it. And I love Mr. DeLuca tossing me those softballs.
I do have another softball for you on the first one.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mayor.
I have a question. I know you and our prosecutor and community development director, De Palma, are working on we're both working on our local legislation regarding restricting public carry of firearms in our parks, our sidewalks, our near schools, houses of worship, as we discussed at the last TC meeting. How is that coming along?
Yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is not easy, Mayor, but the answer is yes, we are working on it. And I will report to you that I did receive a call from counsel for the New Jersey Association of Rifles and Handguns, effectively admonishing me and you for even considering doing this, and that litigation will follow. So other than that, it was a pleasant conversation. But I told him that I read the case and that we would have to do an analysis with regard to sensitive places that are indicated in the case. We will have something for you, but it's going to take a little while because we really want to think this through and give you guidance. So yes, we are working on it.
Thank you. And I'm sure you're going to get increased pressure. That's what they do, so they can silence us. Well, 100 people die every day in our nation due to gun violence. So it is our job as stewards to stop that within reasonable restrictions, within reasonable common sense restrictions. So let's keep working on that.
Well, Mayor, I also, in addition to which, we also have to deal with the Constitution, which may not qualify under those circumstances.
That's not true. There is no right that we have in America that is absolute. No
I understand. Sensitive places.
No sensitive places. Let's work on it. Thank you, sir. Any questions for Township Attorney Desiderio?
Yeah, I want to go back to the reval. How are we splitting the cost between the two towns?
Well, we'll. My assumption is we will do it on a per unit basis. Generally speaking, we get a number based on the number of line items we have. We have approximately 7,200 line items. I don't know what South Orange has, but let's say for the sake of discussion, they have 6,100 line items. We would take it, we would divide it up, and then we would be paying on that basis.
Okay, I just want to make sure because they do a lot more in the area of tax abatements and where we don't. And I want to make sure that we're somehow capturing all that. And also they have not major nonprofits like Seton Hall and all that. So I just, we went through this with the fire split, and I want to make sure we're capturing that with this. And I know we did it before. I think it was on line items, so it might work out.
I mean, that's generally the way we, basically okay. We try to get a number based on a line item. So
okay.
Any other concerns, questions? Seeing none. Okay, thank you, Mr. Desiderio. We're going to hear now from our clerk, Ms. Fritzen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few updates. Report that since our last meeting, we have initiated the registrar services by appointment only on Tuesdays and Fridays. And this is a fill-in registrar who has been very busy here on the 2 days a week and is doing a great job. We also have an upcoming filming this week over 2 days, tomorrow and Thursday, and I'll be sending you the information. It's a residential filming and pretty routine. And, you know, events. We have 5 more event planning meetings that'll be held beginning next week for upcoming large-scale events. So, you know, it's a great thing to see all these things happening again. And the large ones, we do sit down with the promoters as well as the township departments. And that's all that I have.
Mayor, I just would like to tie one thing in with Ms. Fritzen. The request for bids on the liquor license are out, right, Ms. Fritzen?
Oh, yes, they're
due back on August
2nd.
August 2nd, which is a township committee meeting. So depending on where they are, we may be able to report back to you on those on August 2nd.
Mayor, I just had one other thing, just as a reminder, and we did advertise in our annual meeting notice for the year. On the August 2nd date, we'll be starting everything an hour later due to the National Night Out, and that's closed session, 8 o'clock, and our township committee meeting, 8:30.
Okay, that's why it says 8:30 in the agenda. You don't miss a single thing, Ms. Fritzen. You're amazing.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any questions for Ms. Fritzen? All right. Why would there be questions? She's got it all covered. All right. Reports from elected officials. Deputy Mayor DeLuca, you're up first.
Thank you, Mayor. In light of the late start of the next meeting, I'm going to move now that we go beyond 9:30.
So moved. Yes.
So I want to share my screen because tonight we started painting. Oh, there's nothing to show. That's not good. Let's see if I can do that again. Well, you're not going to see me, I guess. Maybe this. Nope, sorry, won't be able. Well, I wanted to show you. I don't know why I can't show you, but we started the painting of the mural at Yale Corner tonight. So if you want to take a walk by, we did the white coat, the undercoat. We'll be there tomorrow night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday. So you can come on out and help paint. Want to give you a couple updates from our engineering and public works that on pedestrian safety, we'll be starting the work at the Boyden and Tuscan Road intersection there. We'll be moving the crosswalk from the south side of the street to the north side of the street. We agreed to move forward on the intersection improvements on Baker and Ridgewood. We asked for some pricing on that, but we agreed that that's a major problem area. And we agreed to move forward with looking at dead-ending Lexington as it intersects with Wellesley and Burnett. So again, we want to look at the pricing on that. So those are some of the things that we continue to move forward to enhance pedestrian safety. On the train tunnel art, we saw the presentation back in June. We're going to have Mr. Kittner review the specs that were written by the students, and then we'll begin the process of the conversations with New Jersey Transit and see how that goes. So we're still pretty far away from getting all of our things lined up. Once we move forward with that, we will start our fundraising and make sure that we have a robust private investment in that project. On affordable housing, you mentioned, we mentioned earlier about the, our home purchase program. We did one, we worked with Iron Ore to do number 2, and we're now ramping up for our second, which will be the total of 3 homes that we've worked with people to get to purchase on an affordable basis. And we'll be ramping up for that in the next coming months. And we'll also be working on a partnership with the county to do some more rehabs because our resources for rehabs are depleted. And finally, on the library construction, we're doing a pre-construction meeting tomorrow. And hopefully by the end of the week, I'll have a date for you after our library board meeting tomorrow night on groundbreaking. So stay tuned. And that's it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor DeLuca. Committee Member Cripe.
I will keep it short because it's late. Wanted to give a little bit of information about a few of the committees we've met. We actually have most of our meetings after this meeting, so I have much to report. Other than that, the summer meals have started and the USDA has been informed that the maps that they're using to determine whether or not we have a food desert in Maplewood are old. We just found out that they're using one from the 90s and that is not going to work for us. So we've sent them a letter to let them know that their old maps need to get redone because things have changed. Raven Health has a van, and although we've been having some regular attendees going to the senior center to do the various health checks, blood pressure monitoring and such, they would like to see more robust turnout. So they're looking at utilizing the van, and they're asking for community input in regards to places where our seniors will be. The community fridge, the farmers market, splash park, or any of the parks in Maplewood that we're looking at having things, even at the pool. They have the ability of transporting their testing to wherever the seniors are. So please reach out to me at the township or to our health officer and let us know so that we can let the health people know that they can get those vans over there. The Sustainable New Jersey survey has gone out. Please, 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 if you have a moment, take a moment to fill those out. We need to get as much information back from our community as far as our health goes so that we can fulfill the majority of the last few pieces that we haven't already filled in our checklist. Maplewood is fairly healthy, and we've been doing a really good job of doing things in Sustainable New Jersey. We've pretty much filled some of the requirements without even trying. So that is actually good. And finally, we are looking to try to coordinate a little bit of food and transportation available for our seniors. Unfortunately, since the bus that used to run on Valley will no longer ever come back, we still have seniors with transportation issues trying to get to South Orange, which is the only handicap accessible train station in our community. Maplewood is not, unfortunately, accessible as it can be, especially if they are on the central track. Our seniors can't get up and down the stairs without difficulty. So unfortunately, we only have transport Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between there. We're looking at additional ways to get folks there. And that is it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Committee Member Cripe. That was a lot in a short period of time. Well done. Committee Member McGehee.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just going to cover public safety this evening. We met on Wednesday, and I'm sharing my screen showing you some of the stats from our UCR report for the month of May. Takeaway was the month of May itself, in terms of statistically speaking, was a good month from a crime perspective. However, year to date, there is an uptick in some of the UCR, the core crimes. And a lot of it obviously again aligns with theft and auto theft. I think we've talked about this now probably for 2 to 3 years in a row about individuals leaving keys in the car, leaving cars running. It's just something that's going to result in potential theft or auto theft, and we've got to do better with that, obviously. We did have a couple incidents that occurred, robberies. One was domestic related, one was late in the high school, and one was related to an individual waiting at the bus stop. So, we do have these incidents. Last year, this time we were just coming out of COVID, and I do believe that now we're somewhat theoretically out of it, knock on wood here. And I think we're seeing some of the results of that at this point. So all in all, these are the statistics. I also want to touch on some of the overtime as well, which is that, for the most part, the police chief's been doing a pretty good job. June was a pretty challenging month in terms of June for overtime, not May, where we had multiple Pride events, Equality March, Pride Fest, and Juneteenth. But all in all, year over year, we're at about 6.2% increase in police salary and wages, while everything else, dispatch, everything else across the board is negative. So anyway, that's my report, Mayor, and I'll yield the floor back to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McGehee. Appreciate that. Committee Member Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. The subcommittee of code that is looking at parklets and streeteries. Had a very fulsome meeting, and we're having another one on site down in the village this week. Is that right, Ms. Barnett? It's this, okay, just want to make sure.
Yes, this Thursday.
Yeah, so we'll be nice and early. So we're gonna get out there just to kind of see what's what and have an on-site meeting. Anyway, that's proceeding, and we hope to conclude after another couple meetings after that probably, and have something to bring to the Township Committee with regard to codifying our requirements. Recycling bids for collection. We got one bid not from the existing company that we had. But we also are going to meet again tomorrow, I believe, to discuss how to go forward. There's some outstanding discussion points that this committee will be talking about. Mr. Desiderio is taking part in this as well. I voiced to the committee that I didn't think that the Township Committee would have the appetite to pay more just to keep to keep this as a dual stream project. So if I'm incorrect in that, please say so now, Mr. Desiderio. And I thought that given how much it's costing us for recycling anyway, that this committee would rather save the money than go dual stream and pay more. That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm. The one disadvantage to that, just to let you know, is that if it's dual stream, the marketing of the materials is likely to bring in more revenue and counter the expense. But I think we need more assurance that that would actually be the case. So we may very well be going out to bid again. We will likely accept the marketing portion of the bid, as that was lower, and then have the rebid, put the other collection bid out again. So the fun continues on that project. Just want to tell you all that when we talked about signs for businesses in residential areas, Mr. Desiderio made that an easy problem to solve, as he found something that basically, other than those that are grandfathered in, the signs are not permitted, and it's already existing in our ordinance. So we don't have to talk about that anymore. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to Maple Woodstock Committee. Big event, great event. They're going to be having postmortems. I've already asked for them to set one up for us to talk about. There was a new layout, so there were things that were changed on the fly, including me working with Matt Matthews to get some music in the beer and wine garden, because on the second day, because it was kind of, you couldn't really hear the music over there. So there were some issues with it not feeling like Maple Woodstock, almost feeling like two separate events. So a lot of that is going to be talked about and thought through. So, but it was a great event. Special for me, as all 5 of the kids were all home for the first time in like 5 years. So that was great. So that's my report, Mayor. Thanks.
That's a really good report. And I join you in thanking the Maple Woodstock Committee. What a fabulous job on their first time back. I thought it was excellent. We had such a great time out there, and everybody was full of glee. Everyone who was there was so happy and thrilled to be there. And we didn't have any incidents, major incidents. It all was seamless, so well thought out and organized. Personally, I thought the new layout was fantastic. I agree with you. There may need to be some adjustments, but I've heard from so many residents, Ms. Adams, who were really happy with the new layout and being able to spread out. And we'll talk about that, as you said. And
yeah, Ms. Kripe and I will be at that meeting when it gets set up. Part of it will be the feedback from the vendors and whether or not they did as well when people weren't walking by them without, necessarily wanting to walk by them like in the previous years. So yeah, there's a lot that'll go into it, as you well know. So yeah, great event overall.
maybe there were too many vendors. I mean, they went all the way around and maybe that wasn't necessary, but again, to be discussed. Thank you. So I have 3 quick items. The first item is the master plan virtual workshop. The virtual workshop is still available, folks. If you have not raised your voice, please do so. This is an initial step to get us going, to identify some key areas of interest in the municipality, key issues as we start building multiple public engagement sessions with various stakeholders and community groups starting this fall and going into winter and into 2023. The virtual workshop can be found on our website at maplewoodmasterplanworkshop.com. Very easy to remember and very accessible on the landing page of our website. So please provide your input. It's an interactive survey. This is not one of those, do you like this? Yes. Do you like that? No, it really is interactive. And it is very, very helpful to our planner as we move ahead in this process. The second issue is the issue of the day. This is something that I have received the most emails about, and certainly during Maplewood Stock when I was trying to get my good vibe on, everybody was hassling me about it, but that's okay because that's what we're doing and that's where we see people and we need to hear what's on people's minds and what they're concerned about. This is about the busing plan that the school district announced a couple of weeks ago now with respect to the end to courtesy busing. I just want to report that myself and committee member McGeehee, who are part of the Municipal Partnership Committee, we did call for a special meeting with Dr. Taylor and his team, his administrator, and with BOE leadership, President Joshua and VP Caitlin Whittler, to talk about this and to see if there's any room for them to reconsider their decision in certain areas, for instance, whether or not the 2-mile hardline approach can be reduced to a mile radius as other neighboring school districts have adopted, at least for the very little ones, our elementary children. And also to continue working with township officials or public safety officials with respect to the logistics of this. What will this look like? We certainly have traffic congestion already. And, we don't have drop-off zones in most of the schools. And, we're very, very concerned about our working parents and whether or not they can make it to their train on time and drop everyone off. And bigger picture, obviously, we're very, very concerned about this upending the integration plan that we worked so hard to get to, which is also related, of course, to the bond that committee member McGeehee referenced earlier with respect to the school construction. So you can't have integration without a thoughtful transportation policy. I'm happy to report that our meeting went very well. We forwarded all of the remarks that I received from various parents, and Mr. McGeehee has received as well, and all of us have received in our email boxes. And all of those concerns were well received late in the day here. And as you heard announced earlier today, they are looking at what they can do, reconsidering the previous policy that was announced and what is possible on such a short notice before school starts again in a few weeks, right around the corner. So more to say about that, but I want you all to know that we have forwarded your concerns. What you can do is to keep doing what you're doing, reaching out, speaking up, raising your concerns in a manner that is collaborative and respectful and valuable. So let's keep doing that and working together. That's what our job is. And last but not least, there is a heat wave all week, unrelenting through the weekend. And I'd like to ask Assistant Administrator Barnett, who put out an email advisory township-wide earlier, to talk about our procedure with respect to cooling centers for our residents. Township Administrator Barnett, would you kindly?
Yes, of course. So With regards to the cooling centers for this summer, I know that in the past we have had the DeHart Community Center serve as our cooling center. That's currently being used for camps. So after being approved as a change of emergency protocol from the OEM, now the designated cooling center is going to be the senior center. What residents should do if they're in need of somewhere to cool off is contact our police emergency line. So that's going to be the 1234 number. For some reason, the front of it's escaping me right now. So if somebody could put that in the chat, that would be super helpful. But you're going to want to contact that non-emergency number. Those folks will then be invited into the police headquarters, which is also the municipal courthouse on Springfield Avenue. They'll be able to sit in the air conditioning in the courthouse there, keep cool until the cooling center at the senior center has been activated. So once we recognize that there's that community need, that cooling center again, senior center right next to DeHart is going to be activated, and that's where folks will be directed.
Terrific. Thank you for that. And we did put out an advisory accordingly earlier, and maybe we can blast that out through our social media pages tonight after this meeting, if I'm still awake, and help promote the message. I also want to report, gladly report, that our Community Services Director and Rec Director, Melissa Mancuso, is also working with her staff to see how we can open up the pool as another cooling center for all of our residents, members and non-members alike, starting tomorrow. Now, tomorrow is a little bit complicated because we do have a very important Mako swim meet, and we expect a lot of people for that after 3 o'clock. So maybe tomorrow we may only be able to do the hours between noon when we open and 3 p.m. But we're looking at how we could open the pool up to everyone to cool off Thursday, Friday, and through the weekend. Subject, of course, to change based on any capacity issues we may experience. And those details will be made available as soon as they're confirmed by Community Services. I think we might have a flyer in the works, and I will promote that information along with our liaison to Rec, Committee Member Kripe. So let's see what we can do. We're certainly working very hard to do it. It would be a very nice and welcome gesture to open the pool up, our beautiful community pool, to our community. And that is my report. Thank you. Discussion items. The first item is about, yes. Who said that? Can I mention the suicide prevention hotline, the new suicide prevention hotline? Committee Member Kripe, yes, please do. That's
Thank
important.
you. I meant to mention it earlier. As a parent and as someone who has struggled with mental health issues, I'm very proud the United States has actually moved to transition to a dedicated number for the entire country. So beginning this Saturday, the U.S. is transitioning to 988 as suicide and crisis hotline. Our Health and Human Services Director, Mr. Pitara, has been killing it in DC, and one of the things he's been asked to do is to have a all-encompassing suicide prevention number for everyone. So it links us to the Veterans Crisis Line. It follows joint effort from the Department of Health and Human Services, the FCC. There are just so many people who got involved. And thank God it was a top priority for Mr. Pitara, so that all Americans have a $400 million capacity and crisis center available for them to have help during mental health crisis. So thank you to our leadership in DC, and please, if you find yourself in a situation where you need some assistance, do not hesitate to contact us. We want to help you.
Thank you, Committee Member Kripe. That's important. I had that on my list, and I'm glad that you caught it. This is a big deal. 988. No longer do you have to remember that 10-digit number, 1-800 or 188. What are the numbers, right? This is the former National Suicide Prevention Hotline converted to 988. And the services available to those who call 988 go beyond just suicide prevention. They include an array of mental health services. We will, I should though, I was on a couple of calls with mayors across the country about this earlier in the week, or rather last week, because it's only Tuesday this week, that, you know, we should just warn folks to be patient with this new 988. It is supposed to be comprehensive, and we're not just sure yet how well coordinated and connected it's going to be to all the locally available resources. So, but we encourage people to call 988. That is the new number. And thank you for bringing that up. That's very, very important. We'll talk about this a little bit more at our next TC meeting when we're going to do our Board of Health presentation, I promise. Okay, so discussion items for real this time, canceling the August 16th Township Committee meeting. Ms. Fritzen.
Yes, Mayor. So it's your tradition to cancel the second meeting in August. So I hope you will consider doing that again for this year.
So moved. So moved.
Seconded. I'm in the woods.
It's going to be a tight vote.
I'm going to take a vote. Ms. Adams?
Yes, please.
Right?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGeehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We all could use a respite. The second item here will require real discussion, adopting a sump pump ordinance. Deputy Mayor DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I do that, I just want to, this is the Yale Corner thing that I couldn't show before. It's so cool, I had to show it to you. So this is the painting that we did. And by the weekend, there'll be all colors here and all that. So it represents a river that goes through the community and all that. So, all right.
Great. I hope it's heat resistant paint.
It's some special kind of paint.
Yeah.
And so I think it's also graffiti resistant too, some kind of special paint. Okay, so this came up at the Engineering Public Works meeting. Ms. Adams actually brought it up to us. We discussed it. We had Mr. Desiderio come with us. It was the Engineering Public Works wanted to move forward with it. It was brought to code next. So here, and that committee was in favor of doing it after talking to the building side of the operation. So here's basically the draft. I'll make it a little bigger. So we're talking about property owners cannot connect the sub pump to the storm sewers. I'm sorry, they can connect to the storm sewers, but they can't put it out in the street. And it talks all about that. It talks about going in, has to get approval by the building department and the engineering department. So, and then of course, new construction. So this does not mean that current people with sub pumps have to reconfigure it. If there is a problem, like we have some problems, for example, there's a problem on Oregon where we have massive icing from sub pumps, then we will work with those. So if the sub pump presents a health or a safety problem, we'll deal with it as we do streets, which Mr. Kittner can talk about. As we do streets, we'll tie sub pumps into drains and try to get the water off the street. So Mr. Kittner, why don't you say anything you might want to say about this, and then Mr. Desiderio, and then we can, if we're okay with it, we would ask Mr. Desiderio to put it in ordinance, put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. I think you summarized it very well. What this ordinance allows us to address areas that are hazardous. It also covers new sump pump connections. It also, I believe, discusses illicit connections. I know that's in our ordinance as well. And illicit connections are one of the biggest concerns I have going forward with our sanitary sewer system getting overwhelmed by sump pumps constantly pumping groundwater. So, the ordinance, I think I reviewed the document that Mr. Desiderio prepared, and I would support this document. When we would construct roads, when we reconstruct roads, we're always looking at ways to improve drainage and also address problematic sump pump discharge areas. Franklin Avenue is an example of that, for example, where we tied all the sump pumps in. Before us doing the work, it was almost like a swamp, for lack of a better word, and now it's dry. So there are things that we can do. I think there's going to be some problematic areas from individual residents who have really long discharge a long discharge area where they can't connect to a drain close by. It may involve some coordination with the township. So, but we'll work with the residents on that as well. So overall, I think the ordinance is good, and I provided my comments to Mr. Desiderio. I'd encourage getting that passed.
Mr. Desiderio, do you want to talk about how, you came up with this draft? You're muted.
Sure. No, I mean, it was very, obviously the input from various people. We try to balance the equities with regard to existing situations, new construction and the like. And I think it was a good compromise with regard to all of the input we got from various parties. I would just ask for one thing in terms of the draft. I just need your input with regard to penalties for first offense, second offense, and third or subsequent offenses.
What's your recommendation?
I don't think we want to make it overly penal. I would say $100 on the first offense, maybe $250 on the second offense, and third offense, $500, any subsequent offense if people don't. I mean, my sense of this and the spirit of it, as I understood it, is that basically there's going to be a collaboration between engineering and construction to try to help people. So I don't anticipate that there are going to be warnings and consultations before any violations are written. So that would be my suggestion.
I thought to the extent that we have offenses or enforce it with regard to damage to municipal property, which is what we talked about, that we wouldn't, those that are existing, if they're not doing any massive damage, that'd be fine. But if they are cited for new construction, would we not want them to abate the situation rather than pay a minimal fine?
Well, the answer is yes, and that's generally what the court will do. Generally, the prosecutor will go and say, listen, if you have such a period of time to abate the offense, and then come in and do that. So yes.
Okay, so I don't have it in front of me, so I just wanted to make sure that that was the goal. And yeah, to the extent that the township can help residents in problem areas, that's what we talked about.
And just for the public, just a quick thing on the infrastructure. So, and our engineer can correct me if I'm wrong. We have two sets of pipes running down our streets. We have the sanitary sewer, which deals with, everything that we're flushing and putting down the sink. And then we have the storm sewer. And we don't want the storm water in the sanitary because it's not designed to get all that infusion of water plus all the sanitary stuff. So that's why we don't want sub pumps run through the sanitary sewer, our sewer pipes in our basements, because that charges up the sanitary sewer and makes a problem. So we want it in the sewers, which you see those sewer grates that are next to the curb. That's our storm sewer. So that's where we want the water to go into to get out there. It's also that the water has to get have to be moved from the street. So we want to get that stuff out as quickly as possible. So if we're good with this, we can let Mr. Desiderio put it on for our next meeting.
Yeah, I agree. We move forward.
Well, I have a couple of questions, Mayor, since Mr. McGehee.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so, and that's why I asked for Mr. Kidner to stay on. So in our assessment of this ordinance, how many homes do we think are impacted or will be impacted?
I think it's mainly pertaining to new homes, and it's homes that are deemed problematic. I don't think we have a quantified number in terms of what are considered hazards. But I think, as I said before, if it's not creating a hazard and it's an existing condition, then the existing condition would be allowed to remain.
Okay, and then also I pull this up. I have my highlighted sheets in my hand, but I pull this up for the public. So for number 2, all applicable permits and approvals are obtained for engineering, building. How's that going to work, Mr. Kidner? How are we going to communicate this out to the public moving forward? Just want to get a better idea of. So if we pass this ordinance, how are we going to implement it? How's it going to work? The process, so residents are A, aware, and B, how would they go about it?
So again, this is mainly for new construction. A lot of people existing are already discharging to the curb, for example. You know, first of all, whenever you're connecting to our storm sewers in the street, you have to file a road opening permit, and that requires an approval from the engineering department. So that's already an existing process that's in place.
Mr. McGehee, if I may, I mean, like all ordinances, people are charged with understanding what the law is. We're obviously going to publish it and it'll be available. What I anticipate will happen is when our code people go out there and take a look, or engineering people go out and take a look and find a violation, then they'll talk to the people in the home. They'll tell them what the process is, give them an opportunity to apply for the applicable permits, and then move forward in that regard.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Desiderio. My concern is just that we don't really know the exact exposure, how many homes are going to be impacted by this ordinance. You know, coming out of some of the initial, you know, Ida is an example of where we had massive rain and many homes impacted. I just want to, I mean, again, I just want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and looking at the overall impact of the average home that's going to be impacted here. Because you're saying that, you know, we're going to have code come out and look at the particular situation and provide with information. But I would just feel more comfortable if we knew theoretically, we know our housing stock, what are we talking about here?
It's almost impossible, Mr. McGehee, because we just don't know. You know, almost everybody's discharging somewhere with their sump pumps.
Correct.
Just from an engineering standpoint, and Mr. Kittner can correct me, years ago they didn't connect them to the storm sewer. So consequently, they're either discharging them on their property or they're discharging them into the street. And it's a question of water flow with regard to it. So listen, there are going to be homes that are going to be impacted. The answer is yes. How many? Anything would be a pure guess.
Understood. You said the magic word, everyone.
No, wait a minute. Let me chime in on this because I've been following the discussion in Code Committee, which has also had a big portion of doing the research here and moving this forward in conjunction with engineering and public works. So the idea here is not to go after everyone, right? Even though there are discharges by a lot of homes, the idea here is not to go home by home and say, guess what? We have a new ordinance, you got to comply or else. The idea here is to mainly put this into our code and permitting for new construction so that they're well informed and advised before construction begins, and to address the most egregious situations that we are aware of in the township by private homes where there are public hazards, you know, where icing has accumulated on the sidewalk and on the public roadway and created public hazards. So,
right. So we do know that there are some homes that are going to be impacted, correct? And not just new construction, to be clear.
Yes. Okay.
Right. But it's not like we know the areas where this is mostly a concern. We just did not have a method to address it before. Now we do. And I might add that until if we move forward with this and actually introduce and adopt this, we will join most municipalities in Essex with a sump pump ordinance. We're among the few that do not have one.
Or adding to our sump pump ordinance. And then I guess the question is, if we know the areas that have been infraction, how have we in past dealt with them to try to address the issue?
The way we've done with that, we do with all code enforcement. We use a carrot, you know, please, you know, this is a concern, we're coming, please address it, but ultimately without any enforcement power, you know, we've been at times unsuccessful.
Gotcha.
So, Mr. McGee, can you put up letter D?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, thank you. So if you go to the second sentence, it would be existing discharges deemed to be causing an unsafe condition, such as ponding of water or icing. So we have empirical evidence of the problem. And we know that right now, in our evaluation of this, we received information from Public Works that there is roughly 6 to 10 homes that we have significant ponding and we have icing that requires us to send out salt trucks. So we know these homes and these streets. So we will be able to identify them right away because we have a history of doing this, and we'll be able to work with those property owners to try to address some other way to get that sub pump to discharge.
Understood. Okay, so this gives John, our team, some teeth to address those problem areas.
Right.
End of the day. Okay, perfect. Thanks. That's all my
To
question.
that point, Mr. DeLuca, I believe it shall be removed as directed by engineering and building. Should probably change that.
What does it say?
Just engineering.
I actually thought we took building out of it.
Did we? I don't.
Yeah, I think I had building in and I think our perception was,
Well, to the
no, I'm sorry, I take it, you're right. Engineering and building, that's fine.
Yeah, just
Yes.
because they'll need building permits and things like that anyway. So our goal was to have engineering and building and work together on issues like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So Mayor, I think we're ready to put it on for the next meeting.
Okay.
Could I
great.
address one comment by committee member McGahey? I think he was asking, how would they know about this? And I just want to clarify one thing. I think in most cases, most residents are going to hire a contractor to do this work. And most contractors know to apply for a road opening permit when they're doing work within our right of way. So I think that would trigger that permit, and we would certainly, inform the contractor at the time that it's required. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kidner. And I think really Mr. DeLuca's narrative really gave me the crux of the matter here. And I appreciate it.
Mr. Kidner, just one last point. It's not just icing. The icing and the constant water flow does long-term damage the roadway, damage the curbs, damage the gutters. So the long-term effect is year-round and
Yeah.
something we end up having to reconstruct.
Thank you for that point. And yes, when it is, significant, it could cause long-term damage to our roads. Invariably, when you look at some pump discharges that are significant, there's usually settlement and there's usually potholes in those areas. So it does deteriorate our roads prematurely and cause significant damage to them. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Desiderio, do you have what you need to move forward with?
I do.
Terrific. Let's move on because speaking of deteriorating, I'm deteriorating. It's late. Consent agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt items A through G of the consent agenda?
Move it.
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. This brings us to our second public comment period for any subject matter limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Waltz, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We'll now begin the second public comment portion of our meeting on any subject matter. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. Again, please, as a reminder, to turn your camera on when addressing the committee at this time. Mayor, first we have Alden and Angela Bradley. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak.
Do we have the Bradleys? Are they still with us?
I moved them over to panelists, but I'm not saying, here they go.
Okay. I don't see them.
They're unmuted and everything. It's just
They're-
nothing happening on there.
You're muted, folks. You're muted.
They're there, we just can't hear them.
Okay. Still muted. Nope, muted. There you go. We can hear you now.
There we go. Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. We're Alden and Angela Bradley, and we live at 2 Gifford Court in the Hilton part of Maplewood. And we have a concern about an article that we read with the Tapsoma about a marijuana cultivation business that was actually stalled by the committee at the last meeting. But we do want to voice our concerns and our opposal to this cultivation company coming into the neighborhood. It is late and we only have 3 minutes. So I actually wrote like a 5-page document, but we only have 3 minutes. So I'm gonna just voice my main concerns, which are the children in the community, families, the elderly. We've been residents for over 30 years and we love the community. We have no plans of moving right now. Our kids have grown up here, went to Maplewood schools, and we've been very happy here. But just seeing this article, we have a lot of concerns about a cannabis cultivation company coming into the community. And we do realize in the Hilton area. And we do realize that it's an industrial area, but there has never been anything like that. It's going to be next to a plumbing company, which services our community very well as others. When we were affected by Hurricane Ida, our plumber went to that plumbing company and got a lot of things, but we have no use for a cannabis cultivation company in this neighborhood. And I'm very concerned that it's going to impact our children. You all spoke about there will be no more complimentary busing. So that means that there's going to be more children walking back and forth to school. Other concerns that we have, but not
30 seconds.
Okay, not limited to just these, our parks in the area. We have beautiful D Hart Park in the area where I consider myself a senior where I go to walk. There are children who play. There are many activities there. We have our senior center there. I'm concerned about the odors that could come from the plant. I'm concerned about security because in a place like that, you have to have armed security. I'm concerned about the load that it may have on our police department.
10 seconds.
Okay, so I have more. So I would like to know what is going to happen going forward about this? Will there be another opportunity to speak about it, to voice our concerns in another arena possibly?
Sure. I can address that. First of all, thank you so much for hanging in with us so late in the night to voice your very important concerns. They are duly noted and you're welcome to send me your 5-page letter or memo. I will distribute it to the rest of the committee members and to the township officials. As you noted in the beginning of your statement, this application that you're talking about stalled at our last TC meeting. And at that time, we made it very clear to them that the only way that this could potentially move forward is if they met our various conditions. One of those main conditions is that they sit down with all of y'all, all of you residents, and get your approval. That's very unlikely to happen. We have not heard from the applicant. The applicant has not reached out to me. As I understand, I have a lot of friends who are your neighbors. They have not reached out to all of y'all. So as far as we know, they are not moving forward with this application and they're possibly looking at alternate locations outside of the Hilton area.
Okay, great.
So at the moment, this is not going anywhere, but we want you to know that that is where we are right now. I do want to address one other thing before I let you go. We do not allow armed security in Maplewood. That is just our policy. It reflects our values, our social justice. hard work in town, all over town. So that is never going to be something that we allow in any cannabis facility of any kind, anywhere. So I want you to be very
comfort.
I want you to be clear about that. We are talking about, not having public carry in our public in sensitive areas like our parks, like our schools, like our governing buildings. So we will certainly not add more guns on the street, ma'am. I want you and your husband and your neighbors and your friends to know that very, very clearly and unequivocally. So there you go. I've answered your questions, and you're welcome to send over your statement, and I'm happy to share it with everyone else. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate that.
You're welcome. Mr. Waltz, next up, we have Mr. Flack, I see, right?
Yes, Mayor, converting to a panelist now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can, Andrew. Welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor Daffis and Township Committee members for allowing me to speak at such a late hour. I will keep this brief, I promise. My name is Andrew Flack. I live at 3 Woodland Road. I'm unfortunately one of the families affected by the recent change in busing policy. We live at the corner of Woodland and Jefferson. As I'm sure many of you know, it's a fairly dangerous intersection. There's no crosswalk to get over to Walton or on the other side of Jefferson Avenue. We found out on July 5th that our 7-year-old son, Patrick, would be walking to school next year, which the district has determined to be 1.93 miles, so close that our neighbors 2 houses down from us will receive bus service. I attended last night's Board of Education meeting. I know I was very happy to hear that they're reconsidering the policy. I participated in public speaks, so I'm going back to back here, a couple late nights. And the one thing the board president did say in his statement was that there was extensive consultation after the policy was passed in April of 2021 between the board and both South Orange and Maplewood. So what I'd like to understand is, what kind of consultation was there? Which departments were involved? Was any public input requested as part of that consultation? And how was the determination made by the township that there was no need to change the hazardous routes? I don't want to revisit the past, and I'm glad that we're trying to fix this now, but I understand you guys can't change Board of Education policy, but I think your consultation right with respect to hazardous routes is a very important way that you could help shape it. So I would just ask for more detail as to who was involved in those discussions with the district last year. Thank you.
So Mr. Flack, as you noted, we don't want to go back to the past, but I want to be also transparent and answer your question and not leave you with any ifs or maybes or speculation. As I noted in my personal report earlier, we have had discussions with the school district. Our advocacy and your advocacy is seemingly moving us in the right direction. So that's the bottom line. That's what we really all hope for. Yes, there has been input from both townships, Maplewood and South Orange, accordingly in the past with respect to our designation of hazardous routes. That is a determination that's made by law enforcement in consultation with our other public safety officials. But that designation in April 20 or April 21, rather, as you noted, is not a consultation or designation or any further logistical planning or information that was provided anytime recently. And certainly not before any transportation policy was adopted and communicated to parents. We heard about this when you heard about it as a parent. And again, because of that reason, we asked questions. We asked to meet with them, to ask questions, to forward your concerns, and to find out how we can work together in alleviating all the concerns of parents and families. So that's my answer to your question. And we will continue partnering and working with them. This is their lane, this is their issue to work out, and we're here to support in the manner that we can. yeah, I mean, the logistics of a transportation policy go beyond 4 or 5 emails over a year ago about what may or may not have been at the time a hazardous route. So, there have not been any updated. Now, I want to make it clear for the record, because everyone's watching and people twist words. I'm not placing blame, and neither should you, and neither should I, and neither should any of us, because placing blame does not get us forward. It is not valuable. What is valuable is talking, collaborating. That is what we're doing, and that should be your takeaway. And that is our takeaway. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Do we have other comments from the public?
I see no one, Mayor.
Okay, so we're closing the public comment, and this means that I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right,
In
everyone.
favor.
Good night.
Hi.
Good night.